6:30. Today we are in a budget workshop. Let me sort of set the parameters for everybody. Number one, I want to thank Dale and the auditor's office, Steve, and the resources for a lot of work to get us where we are today. We've been meeting a lot over the last 2 or 3 weeks together, and there's a lot of work in here. What we'd like to do today, Commissioners, is take our time. We're not in any hurry. I'd like to take each page that we have here and let people talk about that so you'll all know exactly where we are. We don't expect to make a lot of decisions today, but we want to try to get you as informed as we can and answer all the questions that you might have. So we'll be able to have further discussions later on. Commissioner Pusley's. We'll be able to have further discussions. Oh my gosh. Is that God or? Oh my gosh. Commissioner Pusley's sister-in-law passed away suddenly. Mike, we're very sorry to hear that. I know Norma has had a rough week with the family, and our prayers are all with your family, and I think that funeral is tomorrow. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay, fine. All right, let's go to page under tab Table of Contents, please. There is a table of contents that shows where everything is. You can refer to that as we go along. We will come back to that from time to time. Under tab 1 is the budget planning calendar. I understand we may have a little bit of a conflict as we move forward on a couple of dates, but we're going to try to stay with this as best we can because we do have some timing issues that we have to do certain things in accordance with truth in taxation. Yes, Steve.
I'd like to,
right here on tab 1.
if I could, Judge, I'd like to just quickly go through our August Commissioners is really our full month that we really have a lot of things we have to do because we can't start this stuff until we have defective tax rates. So we have this budget workshop scheduled for today and tomorrow, the 7th and 8th. But on Wednesday, our regular meeting, we will receive the effective tax rate calculation from the auditor and the tax office. And then, next week, again, we have on the 14th and 15th, we've scheduled workshops. And again, that depends upon how far we are down the line and, is what we need to do because we have to have, to stay on our schedule, we have to have made some decisions by the 15th because on the 16th is the date that the court has to decide whether we're going to increase or not increase taxes. And the reason we need to make that decision then, because if you're going to increase taxes, then we have to post and have hearings, etc. So this part of our whole agenda is pretty firm. I think the rest of it you have there, but I just wanted to reiterate what we have for the next two. We have 2 courts in a row because we have things to deal with on the thing there. So that's
very good. Okay, I want to ask, the calendars are all there behind the schedule. You can look at those as you choose. That's good work. I'm going to take the general fund revenue, and the auditor is going to walk us through page 1 under tab 2, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is our revenue summary for our fiscal year 16-17 with proposed budget of 17-18. You'll see 5 columns. You'll see estimated actual column is the first column. That's our estimated for this current fiscal year. The second column is our current budget that was adopted by court last fiscal year. We have a column that we say over and under budget, which means if the revenue came in above budget, it'll be over, which is always good. Anything under will be, of course, where we need to look into and possibly research. And then proposed budget that my office is going to be proposing for the next fiscal year. I will start at the very top of that page. We'll start in column 1. You'll see our current ad valorem taxes. Right now, we're estimating a collection of $66,023,260. If you compare to the next column below, beside it is $65,885 was the budget. So we are estimating an overhead budget of $138 84, which is good. And this does represent the Valero refund that we had last fiscal year. The next item is our delinquent tax that we also get from our tax assessor as well as our delinquent tax attorneys. We're estimating 1.3 million. We budget 1.4, it looks a little under, but that's about where we've been averaging, so we keep the number there. The collections are where they are, and we've been very good on our collections the last several years. We've been right at 97, 98% of collections, so our delinquents amounts are down, so we would expect that to maintain where they are. The next item is our penalties and interest on the over balances of our ad valorem, and we're estimating about a $703,000 estimated actual, so that's around $3,000 over budget, which is good. So for total property taxes, we're estimating $68,107,358, or $122,182 over budget. Do we have any questions on ad valorem?
Y'all said you're gonna go slow. What page did you jump to?
I was on page 1,
Page 1.
very top.
Okay. Tab 2, page 1.
It's the property tax of the ad valorem, which is the very top three rows of page 1. The next one was considered over other taxes. We have what we collect in bingo tax. We estimate $392,434, and our budget $309,000, so we're at $2,434 over. Our occupancy tax and coin machines that we have throughout the county, we have $17,408 estimate on $18,000 budget, slightly under, which but still viable. The next one is VIT tax. VIT means vehicle inventory tax, which is the tax that the assessor collector can charge on the vehicles that are on the car lots at the time. We're estimating $33,750, a budget of $45,000 or $11,250. We've been talking to the tax assessor collector. That number has gone down slightly, and so as you'll see when we do the next year's budget, we're dropping that slightly down to 35 to cover that balances. And that would be our other taxes that we have. Next item is fees of office. Fees of office are combined of several items. There are clerk fees, our serving paper fees, our archive fees, record management fees, dispute resolution fees, and other fees that we have, and we consolidate those together. For the first one, we have the County Clerk Collection Division. We're at $237,760 estimate on a budget of $320,000 or $82,000 on the under budget, which is something we're continuing to look at. For the district clerk, we showed $1,132,378 on a budget of $1.2 million, or a slight decrease of $67,622. For the county clerk the regular office is $1,545,750 on a budget of $1,350,000. So they're over, which is good, of $195,750. For all of our justice of the peace, we have justice of the peace. If we go to the total of the justice of the peace, we're showing for all the justice of the peace are $788,478 on a budget of $761,000 or $27,478. Now there are a few of the JPs that are slightly below, and we'll make those adjustments next year. That'd be JP 1-2 is around 137. They've been averaging about 130, 140, so we'll be dropping their budget as we're showing on that matter. For the sheriff's office, we're estimating $66,341 on a budget of $70,000, so they're slightly below, but that's still relatively close. For all the constables, we're showing $34,266 on a budget of $32,600, or slightly over of $1,666. So there will be no change in that. So our total fees of office at the very bottom of the page, which summarizes all of them together, is $3,804,973 on a budget of $3,733,600, or over budget of $71,373, which is very, very, very good. Now we'll go to page 2.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. So, on collections, we look at collection fees at the different clerk offices, and I know county clerk is split, so it's kind of tough to judge. But based on that and what the numbers we show for district clerk, why is there less? Was there because there were fewer fees that were needed, or is this something that is not being collected, or why would we see a drop like this?
Well, on you gotta remember, there is a division between the collection department and the county clerk. The county clerk has your clerk fees, your record management fees, and all that. Well, the collections division are a very small number of fees that they can charge. And as you'll see later on in our fines, the collections have gone down some, so their fees that they can charge have gone down. So that was an item we were looked at too, and we saw that it's been averaging about 240 or 230 throughout the whole last 4 or 5 years. And that's why you'll see that we're estimating a reduction in the budget for next year.
That we will?
Yes.
That we will, okay. Because that was going to be my next question for JP 12, at $12,000 difference, so that because there's such, what is considered significant? Because I know you mentioned for sheriff that, that was an amount, but it didn't seem like you had said that they were going to take any hit for that. Is that correct?
Well, this is kind of a little bit where we look into what affecting this year, and then we look at the last 3, 4, 5 years and do trends on where we see the collections are, how the collections are coming in, pluses or minuses. And we've been seeing that the JP 12 has been averaging around 130, 140. And mostly likely closer to 135. And we've had a budget for 140 for a while, so we thought 140 is probably not really reachable. So for this particular item, it's not really a concern. It's just that it was over budget to begin with, so we're trying to adjust a little bit to cover their average throughout the number of last 5 years.
So it's not really so much a hit on them for not collecting, it's more they're just not reaching those numbers, so
Correct.
let's adjust accordingly to
Correct.
show a more realistic budget.
Correct.
Gotcha, thank you.
Dale, on the JP's, the revenue side here, does that include any of the funds that are collected and I guess really for any of the departments that get sent on to Linebarger, does that get folded into this number?
The Linebarger are most likely fines, and fines is another section of the report.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
On the other taxes?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, where did I see it? On fees and fees of office, you have 67,622 under. How come that wasn't moved over like the rest of them? All the rest of them, they're under, move over to the right.
Well, they're averaging. This last year was kind of a downturn because they've gone through a lot of stuff in the district clerk's office with our e-filing and stuff. So this last year was kind of a fluke. They've been averaging from the last 4 or 5 years 1,200,000, 1,190,000. So my staff and I didn't think it was a continuance of that low, so we didn't feel it was necessary to reduce the budget. Because and they've been seeing a lot of increase with the e-filings and a lot of stuff they have to do in work-wise, so they've kind of been spending a lot of their resources and time on getting that caught up to them. That's why they were a little bit down this year, but it hadn't been a trend.
Okay. So everything is moved to the right, it's going to be a indication of a reduction?
Correct.
Okay.
Rejected, yes, sir. On page 2, as Commissioner was asking about, this is where we've seen a slight decrease, well, more than a slight decrease. The last few years, we've seen a significant drop in the amount of collections we've had for fines and fees. As you'll see, as we go through each, the County Clerk's Collection Division, we're estimating $625 on a $750,000 budget, so they're $124,000 below budget. For JP 11, $97,425 on a $130,000 budget, and they're below a $32,575. And those are the two largest ones. The next one would be JP 21, and they're about $29,570 below budget. If we go to the bottom of fines and fees, we're estimating $1,540,264 on a budget of $1,785,000. Or below budget of $244,736. So with that in consideration, my staff, we lowered the budget last year for this particular item. It was close to almost $2 million, so we dropped it down to $1,700,000. We feel closer that the $1,595,000 would be the total budget we're requesting. So as you see, we're reducing the budget for fines and fees of $190,000. there any questions on find the fees? Our next one is licenses and permits that we have. The road crossing permits and other permits that are here is $115,383 on a $120,000 budget, which is $4,617, but we're still going to keep the budget at $120. Motor vehicles, which is a few items, but the biggest one is the sales tax we're able to collect from the state on sales of the vehicles. We're estimating $4,571,000 on a $4,100 budget, or $471,500 over budget, which is very promising. We see that number continuing. On intergovernmental revenue, this is a combination of several that we get.
Dale?
Yes, sir.
So if you see that continuing, why do we have that budget number?
Talking to the tax assessor collector, this is always a number we need to keep an eye on. This is a sales tax we have coming in, and do we expect the trend to continue, or do we expect the trend to fall short? And the tax assessor believes that it's going to be continuing about where it's at, maybe a little bit less than what it was. So we don't want to inflate the number too high and then come way under budget. So for this particular item, we think it's more realistic to stay where we're at on that particular item. And as we'll talk about later, a lot of this sales tax gets transferred to the road fund.
Okay.
Our next level is called intergovernmental revenue. That's where we get our salary reimbursements, the amount we get for the indigent defense grant, our state alcohol beverage tax, reimbursements from the jury, our hazardous waste management, the tax collection of our tax assessor able to collect for all 32 taxing entities of the county. And the other intergovernmental revenue is state and federal grants that we're able to receive throughout the year. The one item I would like to let you know is the one on jury, which is the third one down. We're estimating $251,325 on a $320,000 budget, which is a drop of $68,000, but we kind of expected that with all the online enrollment. We're seeing our jury costs go down, so if our jury costs will go down, our reimbursements will also go down. So we're dropping that slightly. This will be more, it'll probably be more than that next year, but we're just going to make sure this was the first year starting, and we know some of the other courts are starting to bring this more into life, so we'll keep an eye on that particular item. So for total intergovernmental revenue, we got $5,444,228 estimate on a $5,295,000 budget, or over a budget of $145,288. Do we have any questions on intergovernmental revenue?
Yes, I do. Why is the Agua Dulce building included?
That's we get reimbursements for that particular building from I can't remember who we get reimbursements for. It's the utilities that they get reimbursed for.
That's the only reason why they're on there and none of the other buildings.
Right. We get reimbursement, I think, from one of the.
I think it's from the
Probably the city. Someone reimburses us for utilities, and that's what the only reason it's on there for.
They use part of the building.
Correct.
city has.
Seguid All Industry.
And
And they just reimburse us for the utilities.
And so, and then going down to the jury reimbursement, like you said, I mean, I guess over time, we expect this to continue, that number to continue draw down.
Well, we just recently started with
Right.
Commissioner Pusley's assistance on online enrollment.
Right.
And we've seen the cost of our jury gone down significantly. I think our costs are at least $250,000 or $300,000 less than what they have been. So with that cost going down, we're estimating that the cost that we have to reimburse from the state is also going to be going down, because the reimbursement we get is from those that are here more than one day. So if we don't have to pay the jurors 2 or 3 days to sit here before they even get paneled, then that's going to reduce our costs and reduce the amount that we have to reimburse from the state. So we expect that to go down, and it has, and we're seeing good things out of it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is our housing of inmates for the sheriff's office, which is federal inmates, and our juvenile department, which is the Alley County. We're estimating a total of $658,455. After talking with a few people and Steve on this, is that may be a little high. Right now, I don't believe we have any federal inmates in our county jail, and we haven't had them for a while, so that number may be a little bit on the high side. As you'll see, the budget of $800,000. So right now, with the estimates of $141,555, and because we're making that assumptions, right now, we're talking with the sheriff and Steve and the judge as well, we're not going to budget anything next year for the federal inmates coming into the county. So we're reducing that by $450,000. And the juvenile just went through a revamping of their organization. They went from boot camp to a post-adjudication type of situation, and they're estimating their revenue will be right at $300,000 to $340,000. So we're going to lower their budget slightly to $300,000 just to make sure that this first go-round is available for there. Any questions on housing of inmates?
Yeah, let me talk about that. Steve and I met with the sheriff last week, and while they have been approved by the state jail standards people that they can go back into business and do everything else, the sheriff is of the opinion that he cannot take any federal inmates for the foreseeable future because of the pending changes in the law that the legislature passed. What is the lady's name that they just passed the law? The lady that got killed over in Jasper County. They passed a new law that has a lot of additional stuff in it, particularly dealing with mental health and how quickly they have to have people evaluated and how long they're going to have to be able to hold them and all the other things. And so the sheriff is of the opinion that he will not have any federal inmates in the jail for the foreseeable future. So I'm asking you all, draw a circle around that. That $450,000 is a huge number as we move forward. So we'll be coming back to that when we get a little farther in the budget. We were very hopeful the sheriff would say, I can start bringing some of these people back, but he just said, I can't do it. And so that's where we are. And so that's where we are right now.
Tell me that again, why he...
There is a new law, and it's, I can't remember the lady's name. It was passed. It doesn't go into effect completely for another year, but they have to start beginning to get ready for all of this. And it's going to take, in his opinion, it's going to take a longer time in the holding cells. And that was what he got criticized for, was keeping prisoners in the holding cells more than 48 hours. And so he's looked at his jail population. It's still very high. And when we get farther in the budget today, we'll show you some things that judges want to do, and we hope that's going to help. But he just flat said, I cannot tell you I can take any federal prisoners back.
So his interpretation is based on a legal interpretation.
Yes.
So have we asked the county attorney for an advisory as to, I mean, you know, I'm a lawyer and I wouldn't make a legal interpretation for my office, and with respect, the sheriff's not a lawyer, so should we not ask the county attorney for an advisory on that to say you can or you can't? And if
Doesn't do
you
any
say,
good. If he says no, it's no.
well, but then it's a different issue. I mean, if he's saying no because of a policy issue, then
Well,
that's a different thing. If he's saying now no because he thinks it's a legal issue, maybe if he got an advisory that said it's not a legal issue, and it might say it is. I mean, I don't know. If it does, it does. If it says it isn't a legal issue, that might change his mind. I mean, might not, but shouldn't we at least ask? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, we can,
Because it's a big revenue piece of.
but it's still between he and the federal marshals.
I understand, but I don't,
Yeah.
if he's hanging his hat, no pun intended, our sheriff with his hat, on a legal issue, I get that. I understand his concern. I think it's a valid concern. If he thinks legally he shouldn't be doing it, but if we give him an advisory that says legally you can do it, it's just now a policy decision, well, then he can at least have something to say to people if he thinks he's going to get criticized. I've been told legally I can do this. I'm just throwing it out there for.
Yeah, we can look at that, and we will.
Well, I think, as the judge said too, is I don't know even if it's a legal issue. It's a matter of the fact that the amount of time people are in the holding cells. That's the issue that he really has. And then he has all these people come in. He has to classify them and now additional classifications. But it's a combination of getting the people out of the holding cells is really the,
No, and I get it, but we're also working, or the judges are also working on a plan to get that down. So if we can help accommodate his concerns on two fronts by saying, okay, the legal opinion says you're good, and the jail population's going down, then we might be able to help him. If the jail population goes down, but he continues to think he can't legally, well, then we're in a little bit of a box and we didn't ask. So I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I think we ought to at least ask Laura for an advisory and say, you know, if he's right legally, then so be it. I don't want to do anything that's anywhere close to illegal.
We'll ask her.
Okay,
So
thank you.
with this change in the law, then, I guess this is going to impact other counties? Is that-
Everybody,
Everybody.
Well, because all about the timing then.
it's time.
Another one of those wonderful unfunded mandates.
Well, yeah, and what is that lady's name? I'll think about it in a minute. Anyway, okay. Yeah, I can't think of her name.
So, Your Honor,
Yes,
along with that, and maybe we're going to discuss this
Yes.
later, and I don't want to jump ahead if we are, but, you know, we based our ability to expand the McKenzie Annex on the fact that we would be able to bring in additional federal prisoners to help pay for that.
right,
Is that now going to impact that project?
yes.
Okay.
And
We'll talk about that more, or?
Yeah, where are we going to go with that? That's a good
Yes.
question. Maybe we need to stop.
The McKenzie Annex will not open until January, February of 19.
We've already passed the 1900s.
No,
2019.
2019.
Right, so I guess that has to come into this budget discussion at some point, I'm sure. I'm not trying to jump it, but if
Yeah.
it's coming in, then let me know. But obviously,
Yeah.
if that is the case and that's going to do it, then we may need to reassess whether we open that annex at some point, because that's going to
It
be...
won't be in this budget year.
Okay. Good, all right, that's fine. You're right, 19,
Won't
fair
be in-
enough.
It will not be in this budget year.
Okay, but we need to look at that, because if
Oh, believe me, I have.
I know you have. I mean, and that was a big
We
part
have,
of the
I
sell
have.
on this, was that we'd be able to bring federal prisoners in to
It
pay
was,
revenue.
it's a big deal, Brent, and
Yeah, I mean, it's potential.
but it won't
loss.
be in this budget year. We're not going to make it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. But it's a great question. You know, these are things that I want you all to ask, because we need to have this discussion very openly, please.
But I know that the opening of that would not happen in this budget year, but we had some significant expenditures that we had, I guess, started, or where are we at in that? I guess we, know that
Construction.
yeah, they've started some. The real thing, the holdup was they had to move the Sheriff's Patrol Division out of the McKenzie Annex portion, and they haven't been able to move them out there. We had to redo spaces for them in the CSCD area over at the annex. So they're in the process of doing that right now. And the latest, as the judge said, the latest meeting we've had is, the estimate is for completion of the whole project isn't until January 2019. They have started doing some soft demolition over there, but they can't do a lot until they get the patrol's position out of there.
And we ran into structural problems. We ran into
Asbestos.
We ran into almost anything in the world that could go wrong in that old building has gone wrong.
Well, you know, Judge.
Yep.
Steve, with his answer, brings me to another question on that, because, and I was 100% in support of this new jail thing and pushed real hard for it, like the rest of the court did. And as you said, it's not going to be in the 19 budget, but the money that we have set aside for COs is certainly being spent, and maybe we need to review the spending of some of that money until we can get this figured out, because if we haven't started full speed ahead on construction and all we've done is a little soft demo, then maybe we need to revisit the whole spending our CO money. And, you know, because I can see where this budget's going, and it isn't going in the good direction. I mean, all we're doing is looking at revenue losses so far. Maybe it'll get better when we go down the road, but yeah, as Dale says, no. So, I mean, maybe we need to rethink that CO money that we committed and put that back in the pot or something. I don't know. I mean, this is a big deal.
Well, we're still under the mandate to expand this jail as well, and we do have a contract on that. We can look at that.
I'm just-
we can look. No, it's a valid question, and believe me, we've had that meeting with the sheriff a lot.
Are we under contract for construction of the whole
Yes,
thing?
yes,
Yes, we are.
yes, we are.
And
But-
one of the things, Commissioner, is fortunately through this 7 years with the judgeship, we haven't paid a dime for putting inmates in other facilities.
Right.
But we've come close to it, and
Right.
if we continue at the level here, there, when you start putting them in other facilities, it's
No, I get it. I'm not, again, I will reiterate, I was and continue to be 100% in support of this expansion because I think it's a need. At the same time, we factored in a significant portion of that expansion being revenue from the federal prisoners. That was clearly articulated, that was clearly discussed. It's in the legislative intent when we created this. And if that's going to go away, not just kind of, but this is looking like going away completely, then if the circumstances have significantly changed and the sheriff's in a box because of that, I don't want to put us or him in a box, whoever, the sheriff is 6, 8, 10 years from now either, to be running this big old facility and having no income coming in from federal prisoners because we legally can't. So I think we at least ought to have a discussion about it just because I'm very nervous about spending that money, and I'd rather pay a breach of contract fee than pay, $2 million that we're talking about for that expansion? I mean, I'd rather pay, there's got to be some, they haven't started other than soft demo. If we got to pay a breach fee, that's going to be a lot less than $2 million. But anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm a little concerned about this.
Good point.
Okay, to finish up on page 3, the very top is charges for services. Charges for services are covering, again, the cumulative total of a lot of items. Those are your failure to appear fees, your tax collection fees, your certification fees, other charges for services. We're estimating $483,621 on a budget of $500,000, so slightly under $16,379. We didn't feel a change was necessary because of the trend that we've been seeing. It's still around the $500,000 for where we're at. The one good point is the next item is interest investment income. We're at $198,422 or on a $100,000 budget, or $98,000 over budget. And we see this continuing with the investment committee and allowing the county to start investing in municipal bonds and other bonds that are bringing in higher rates of return. We're able to see a larger increase in our interest income coming in, and we see that trend continuing. So we're going to raise our budget for interest income by $100,000 to make it around $200,000 annually. The next item is rental commission. The biggest part of our rental commission is the telephone commission that we get for the inmates at the jail. When they call out for any particular reason, they're charged a fee, and we're able to under a contract, keep part of a revenue that we have with a company we have, and that's right about $600,000 a year. So we're estimating $682,000 in estimated revenue on a $410,000 budget, or $272,000 budget. And because we saw the FCC is not going to change the rules and take this money away from us, so we're going to go ahead and increase the budget by $200,000 to get it up to $610,000.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
A little good news.
Little good news. The next item is refunds and reimbursements. These are items that we get small refunds for. Our workers' comp, when we have workers' comp claim, we get some reimbursements. We never know any balances, so we don't ever budget anything for it, but we are expecting $555,000 of revenue. Other refunds are just normal refunds that we might get for if someone goes somewhere and we get refunds for it, we place it there. So we're estimating $23,477, or on a $25,000 budget, which is very, very, very close to where we need to be. Court-appointed attorney reimbursements are ones we receive actual from the defendants that are assigned to court-appointed attorney. They do pay us back sometimes, and we get a small amount, so we're estimating $121,385 on a budget of $130, or slightly under of $8,615, and we didn't feel any adjustments was necessary for that. The last income source we have is other income. We're able to sell maps, other certificates we have in the county clerk's office, district clerk's office, and we expect $11,310 coming in on a $12,000 budget, or $690. Our copy machine fees is when someone comes in and copies something for an individual, we charge them a certain amount of fee. We're expecting $21,094 on a $19,500 budget. And miscellaneous revenue is just other miscellaneous items that don't really have a place in there, and I can go through those if you need to, but they're a long list. We're estimating about $135,211, a $100,000 budget, or $35,211. So for the county, our total revenue before transfers is $86,363,968 on a budget of $85,568,276, or right at $795,710 above budget. We're transferring, we estimate the same amount that we're coming in for transfers of what was budgeted on the item. So our total revenue coming in is $87,629,759 on a budget of $86,834,049, or $795,710. Our fund balance coming from the prior year was $22,001,630. So our estimate of available resources is $109,631,391. Do we have any questions on revenue?
Yeah, I do. You mentioned on the miscellaneous revenues, a long list. Can you kind of generalize what that is? Because that's a pretty good chunk of change, considering that they don't have any real certain category to fall under.
Well, we call it miscellaneous revenue, but it's more really other income. It's photo ID charges, private funding grants, graffiti eradication, farm what's coming in. I can provide you a longer list if you'd like.
Yeah, if you could, just
Sure, no problem.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll get you a list of that. Those are the bigger ones that we usually have coming in. So, but for available resources for the county for our fiscal year is $109,631,391. Probably. 2018 year, yes.
2018, 2019.
Or 17-18, we're in 17-18, yes.
See, I lose track. This is 17-18 coming up. Okay.
Right, and as you'll see it on the very right-hand column, I'm estimating, without any adjustments for taxes, I'm reducing our revenue by $500,000.
Right. So, with the bottom line total available resources will be $6.3 million, almost $6.4 million less.
Yes, correct.
And we took that out of fund balance.
Yes, sir.
And that number, folks, really gets large as we move along.
When we get to the appropriations.
That number is we'll be coming back to that number often today.
So,
So you're saying right now, the $6,396,858 is really, we're actually going to be in the hole in that, right?
Well, if we haven't got to the appropriations yet, but if you look at the fourth column, towards the very bottom, you see fund balance beginning. That's kind of where we're estimating our fund balance for the end of the fiscal year 16-17. We're estimating $18,543,148, and theoretically, that's about a $3 million balance adjustment from the estimated actual fund balance on the far left.
so the majority of that $6.4 million is the fact that our fund balance is going to reduce.
Correct.
And we took the Valero payment out of the fund balance this year. So that was a $1 million hit or whatever the hell it was.
That's already been.
That's out.
Yeah.
but it's reflected here,
Okay.
but it's out.
That's why we have that
Yeah,
large.
it's out. Okay, that's the auditor's part. Keep going.
One of the things, Your Honor, at the
Yeah.
end of the day,
Yeah.
and this is down the
Please.
road in our tax process, is, Dale, I would hope that we would be able to show if this county has to increase taxes because of these big $1 million deals we have to keep rebating to refineries, how much the tax increase costs them, because they are the largest taxpayer usually in everybody's budget, and how much net to them those rebates come out to be.
I think we're going to be able to back into that in a little bit. I think we'll have some, I think we'll be able to help you do that in a minute.
Good.
Since I
Yeah, please,
came in, what,
please.
I know the CCISD, they took the largest hit in the entire county, and I know that number. But what was our number that we took a hit on from the Valero reimbursement settlement?
Roughly, I think it's around $800,000.
Right at $1 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually think it was a little bit less for this year. I think it was only around
Yeah, it's
650,000 or
around
something.
600,000-700,000, somewhere in there.
Is that total? Total?
Yes, well, you do have a general fund portion, and then you have a road and bridge portion, but the road and bridge portion is very small
A
comparatively.
small debt service portion of it as well.
It was less than $1 million total that we took a hit?
Yes.
Thank you.
This year.
For this year.
Okay.
The previous year, we had reserved that.
Yes.
And
What was
so,
that? So what was just the total of everything that we've had to reimburse?
The first year was a 3-year settlement. We had to refund $1.2 million, and our refund, the prior year from last year was about almost another $1.2 million. So it was almost 2.4.
Almost
I mean, 4.
2.4 total?
4 total, yes.
Plus the 800,000 this year?
Plus this year is 800,000, yes. 6 to 800,000, yes.
So 3,
little over
a little over 3?
3 million, yeah. And John, unlike the schools, we don't get any help from the state to put that back. It comes right off the bottom line. Okay. That's it?
That's it for tab 2.
Okay. Steve, would you start under tab 3, please? And
That's me.
is that still Dale?
That's still me.
Okay, Dale, get after it.
I'll let Steve do it. You want to do this, Steve? Okay, and let's have some fun. This is only now 4 columns, again, the same columns. We're including last year's actuals, so you can see kind of some values on it. We have estimated actuals is your second column, your budget, your third column, and then over and under budget is your last column. Here, under budget is good, over budget is bad, and you'll see a lot of the bad coming through this. I can provide you a detail of any of these you want. These are summaries of each department.
Yeah, I'd like to know why I'm over.
Nope, you're not over.
You're under by 19.
You're over by 5. You're under budget by 5,018.
Oh, those.
Parentheses mean that.
Parentheses,
Yes.
sorry, my bad.
So how does this correspond with the reports that you give us where we're, my concern is because of the numbers, the way they've adjusted since I came on a few months into the budget already, and then there was, kind of shows my office as a top spender or whatever, and I know you broke it down into tiers as based on importance or value to the budget itself, but so was that all still just a precursor or just a warning just to be careful, and does that transfer to these numbers, or is that something totally different?
Well, no, the monthly financial report is these numbers. The monthly financial report goes into a little more detail of the budget to these. Like I said, these are department summaries. So it'd be your total budget for the entire budget for that. And as you were saying, Commissioner, the departments as yours are small because you only have you're in your own, and your assistants only employees, and then a small amount of staff. So if you spend 100% of your budget for salaries, you're going to be top spender pretty much all the time. And we expect that out of small departments. And so that's why when you first came in, I said it's really not alarming, because yours, if you all of a sudden need supplies and you buy it all at once, well, then that's going to throw you high because you don't have any other budget other than those small amounts. But we'll go through each of these in item, and I'll kind of hit the ones that are over, and then we can go through the balances. For y'all particular items, Commissioner Pussy, you're 19,584 under budget, which is very promising. 236 for Commissioner Gonzalez. Commissioner Mize, you're at $3,046 under, and Commissioner Chesney, you're at $5,818 under budget.
And remember, those are based on estimates.
Based on estimates, yes.
That's based on estimates.
Now, we take our estimates, we start in June toward July, we run the balances for the 8 months. We compare them to the last 3 or 4 years to see if there's anything, any of the alarming that may show a real big increases. And then we kind of go through and try to estimate what the remaining balances are. And we always, my staff and I are always know that when these alarming things coming up, we always kind of know some before anybody else that when something alarming is going to come up, and we kind of factor those in. But we didn't see anything in those particular items. The first one that we show that's a little bit over budget is the county attorney. Budget of $1,563,000, and we're estimating $1,563,000 on a $1,560,000 budget, or only small $2,294. The election division, we kind of knew this was coming because we never really budgeted anything for any election costs. They're over budget of $108,923, but that's not really alarming because we didn't do that in the past, but we're going to be talking about that coming up soon. So if we go towards the bottom, you'll see total general government, and as you see, your commissioners are there, the judge, Steve's office, my office, grants administration, county attorney, county clerk, tax assessor, IT, human resources, purchasing and veteran services are all part of this department, our function. We're estimating $15,779,741 in estimates on a $19,155,000 budget, or under budget of $3,375,431. So for the general government, it's showing pretty promises. Just to let you know, the one that we're talking about on appropriations that we set up aside for the Valero and also anyone coming soon, it's in part Department 1285, and we can talk about that later. I think Steve has some information on that at a later point in time, but the department was 1285.
So information technology came in over $500,000 under budget.
That is correct.
So far, that's the largest one I see.
And they had a lot of vacancies at the very beginning of the year. A lot of their reductions was because of the salaries they weren't able to fill at the very beginning.
Okay. Explain to me what happened on the election expense, because I thought that was a zero-sum game.
Our election expense is where we do our elections. We've been working, Steve and I and Kara, and before Kara was Mrs. Barrow on some election costs. We never could really factor in what the election costs were, so we really never put the county share of election costs into a budget item. We'll be talking about this year about doing that particular item. So for this particular reason, we didn't really budget a expense for election costs, so that's why it's showing a small amount overage. Now, these are your adopted budgets. We've already factored this in on our working side of it, but for the adopted budget, that's where it was at.
And Commissioner, this is the county share of the big pot. You know, when you send the bill to the city, well, county gets a share of that also. So that's what this is.
This is our share.
Yes. Okay. Like last November was $174,000. Yes.
You know, but can we still put that in a kind of category to show expenses for elections and versus her budget?
We are doing that moving forward, and we'll show you that in just a few minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. This just needed to be corrected, and we're correcting it.
Yes. Okay. Correct.
Okay.
Page 2. That's our building and facilities. This is where it gets exciting. Go towards the middle, you see Department 1500 mechanical maintenance. Our estimate is $2,585,658 on a budget of $1,814,118, or estimation of $771,000 over budget. And that's one we mentioned that the city decided to change how they read our meters coming into our gas downstairs, and right now, we're estimating around 750 or more over budget, but the last few months, that may end up being higher. And I know the judge has sent a letter to the city saying we're going to be challenging this when we have some.
Are you in the maintenance department?
Pardon?
Are you in the maintenance department?
It's our building maintenance where our cost for our utilities comes in, are both the gas, electric, water, and wastewater.
The mechanical maintenance?
Correct. Correct.
Let me talk about this a minute. For a number of months, we've been getting a huge gas bill from the city. And we have, working with the auditor's office and Glenn and everybody else, we've been trying to monitor what the hell's going on. Last month, it was $100,000 or something. So we've gotten our outside people. We hired an outside engineer to come in and evaluate this. We think it's in the meter. It's taken about 4 months to figure out it's a faulty, we think it's a faulty meter. And it's a faulty meter by a bunch. The estimate for the outside third-party engineer is we ought to be paying no more than about $48,000 a month for gas here, and we've been paying over $100,000. And we've been trying to figure it all out. Tell me about it, all this stuff.
It's not cold here.
So what we've done is we've installed a parallel meter next to the city's meter, and we're monitoring this. And I've written the city manager a letter and said, this is wrong, and if it comes out to be really wrong, we're going to come back and take retribution against the city, because this is a lot of money. Until we can prove it and figure out where we are, this is what we are, and you'll see in our budget going forward, we're going to have a number, because if the gas bill really is what they say it is, we got a problem, because we're way off the budget. But surely we're wrong. Surely they're wrong. I got you. Surely they're wrong. But we have to plan for the worst case scenario, and right now, that's where we are upside down, and we have sent a letter to the city manager and said, this is wrong. We're not, we need some help. And so that's where we are.
Can't we just request they come put a new meter in?
Well, yeah.
If I was a homeowner, I would.
Yeah, but he's trying to test it, I think. I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to prove that it's a
Yeah,
faulty
so we
meter.
put our own meter next
Still
to
want to go
this.
back and get the money we
Yeah,
overpaid.
and so we think we're hundreds of thousands of dollars overpaid.
It may have been overpaying for years.
Oh, all this year for sure.
Yeah,
Sure, yes.
Maybe past years.
Well, we're
Commissioner, the huge jump started this year,
in February.
and their answer to that is that they were reading the meters wrong in the past, And so
Not now.
I don't believe we were
Now, but in the past.
overpaying 2 years ago.
In the prior
Last year.
years, my staff, we looked over the numbers, and we were averaging anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 to $18,000, which is
Yeah,
about what
yeah.
the engineer was saying our costs should be.
Yep.
Depending on the time of the year. When we saw this coming up, and it started in September this last year, and in February, we saw that the costs were 5 times the rate, was from 20 to 90. So we got alarmed, so we sent out some notices to a few departments, and that's kind of where we are now. And as my staff has been telling me, there's been 1 or 2 months that the value has been $120,000.
Do they read our meters manually or?
Monthly,
And
I mean, do they have a person that comes read it, or they?
I don't know. I don't know that.
I think they read it. I think they manually read it, and what they were saying, they told my staff. I don't know if they told engineering stuff, is that they read the decimal point in the wrong place. So they moved the decimal point 1 spot over, which now is a 6-digit number instead of 5-digit number, and that's why the increase was.
And did we ever check see if there was a gas leak? I mean, I know that's got to be something that would come out, but I mean, there wasn't anything like that, right? None of our,
I'm pretty sure our staff. I'm pretty sure Glenn
Yeah.
saw it, they would have known
Okay.
of a gas leak.
no, I get
be
it.
blowing up.
We smell it somewhere.
But anyway, it's a huge number, and we are working it, and it is what it is right now, but that's where we are.
And, Y'all already answered a couple of questions I had on this. One, we found it in a particular month. Was there a particular month?
Yeah.
Who's kind of monitoring it? So I guess Dale or someone noticed that jump. basically
My
from
AP
one
staff will
month to-
tell me when they see all of a sudden a bill comes in 4, 5, 6 times of the normal fee, they'll, hey, what's going on? I go, well, let's notify the departments that this is for, and let's get this done. I know the same situation came up on coastal parks. We had to notify them because their water bills started coming in higher, and I think they're addressing that.
And so my concern would be, hopefully they are wrong, but even if they weren't, saying if they're actually correct, I mean, we're a big customer. I mean, I'm sure there's other big customers that, you plan out your budget, you expect at least a courtesy if there's something wrong, that you just don't send a bill, but some sort of notification, and try to work with us on that, because, I mean, we're all trying to deal with budgets, we're all trying to deal with tax dollars responsibly, but just to come and send us a bill and say, oh, well, we were wrong all along, okay, well, good for you, but bad for us, because now we haven't planned accordingly, because your information we were getting all along was wrong. So I would just hope, Judge, that if whenever this is worked out, that even if it, and I hope that it is found in our favor, but even if it's not, that we work out something, that if something like this comes from the city or any kind of entity that we have to pay a bill on, any kind of utility or anything, that we would get a heads up, at least to try to work that into place, because I think that's irresponsible to expect us to take on that big of a hit from one month to the next, 5 or 6 times, as Dale said. That's big, and so hopefully that number is off. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Going through the rest of the ones, you'll see a small little increase in the Calderon building, which was expected. 1517, which is building superintendents. Last fiscal year, we moved all of our repairs and maintenance for most of the buildings to building superintendent. The 4 at the bottom, we did not move those, so those are in Robstown, and it was easier to maintain those there. But for this particular year and last fiscal year, we've been needing to use 100% of the repair and maintenance for these buildings, and this last year we had to go slightly over, so that's why they're $34,000, $244 over budget. And when we start talking about budget information, we'll probably be raising the repair and maintenance for the buildings up this. And most of the cost has been replacing heating and air conditioning, ventilation in most of the buildings, as well as repair of roof repairs and other repairs that's coming up. Some of our buildings are getting old, and this is kind of a normal trend. At the very bottom, you'll see our estimate for building and facilities is $8,849,064 on a budget of $8,297,955, or over budget of $551,109. Any questions on buildings and facilities?
Man, that makes a big difference. I mean, everybody else really ran pretty tight. Not everybody, but 80% of people ran pretty tight on their stuff, and then you get that big one hickey, and that makes your budget
Yes, sir.
go down the toilet.
So going back, I guess,
Yeah.
once again, Agua Dulce, David Berlanga Senior Building and the Senior Community Center buildings, so those are separate, they're different codes. Why is that? You may have explained that to me before.
Well, they're not necessarily different codes. It's a while back. It was easier for the Edward and before you as Commissioner Solis on maintaining and sometimes it's hard to get people from the courthouse out to those buildings to do some repairs. It was easier just to handle the repair costs there. So with talking with prior commissioner and Edward and the departments out there, it was easier to maintain the revenue of the expense for the repairs and maintenance at those buildings. So that's why we kept them there, and you'll see those stayed. They're under budget. So and that's why we left it there, because they said it was easier for them to not have to call Glenn and get money for this to get repairs. So it was easier to do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
On page 3, your top of the line is your capital outlay. That's where we buy our vehicles, our computer equipments, office furniture that is above certain levels, any other items that are considered a taggable item. We're estimating $723,656, or $344 under budget. Now we go to administration of justice. That's your county courts, your district courts, your district clerk, your juvenile departments, your JPs. first one we saw was slightly over is County Court Law 5. There've been a tendency of just the way this functions is being over budget of $42,404. We've been talking with the 105th District Court. There's $76,458. In the 319th, based on budget, and this is mostly their budget is basically because of court-appointed attorneys, is $98,387,000 over budget. Now you see some of them are very, very, very promising. The district clerk jury administration, that's where we see our costs for our jury, and this is something that Commissioner Posey would be excited to see. We're $438 under budget because our estimated cost for the jury expense has gone down by at least $300,000. And it's very promising, and once all the courts get involved with this, that probably will go down even more than that. So, and that's very, very promising.
So what's the net? I was trying to go back, because that's really cool. The net reimbursement's going to go down by $70,000, but the
Costs will go down to $300,000, yes.
yeah, so the net's about a $300,000 gain for the county potentially?
About that, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty awesome.
So that was really, truly, not really a full year.
Correct. They started middle, 1 or 2 months in the year, and we've already seen that much of a savings, and now we're going to be a full fiscal year, and more courts are getting involved, and we think that's going to be even a bigger savings to the county.
You need it.
And with the Board of Judges meeting we've been going to, more people are starting to go online and start registering online, so we're having fewer people downstairs, which is promising, because if they don't come downstairs, we have to pay them, and we tell them online that they're needed, and they show up, and it's been very good according to what the judges have been saying. On page 4, we continue administration of justice. The only one department is JP13. They're over a budget of $28,801. We've been talking with them, and they're aware of the situation and are currently working on it. So for total administration of justice, we're estimating $20,951,079 on a $22,385,000 budget, or under budget of $1,434,000, which is very, very, very promising.
Gail?
Yes, sir.
So these overages that we're seeing for these district court at law, and JP, are these all due to court-appointed attorneys?
The district courts and county courts, yes. For the justice of the peace, it's other just, some of them had to bring in temporary services because of certain items. I think JP13 had to bring some temporary staff in for some vacancies they might have had, so they had costs that they weren't expecting. But your JPs usually don't have court-appointed attorneys. So those are routine costs that we looked into, and we've spoken with the judge, and we're working on the numbers.
And let me
know they're going to have court-appointed attorneys now, right?
They will, yeah.
The JPs.
Yeah, they will.
New law.
Okay,
That's right,
they had some costs there.
And so,
And, excuse me, Joe, I'm sorry.
That's going to cost.
No, I was just going to say, and the city has figured out that we get to pay for court-appointed attorneys as well.
That's going to kill us.
so my question, I guess, and some of the items are bigger for the district courts, but like the Court at Law 5, Judge Chesney, I mean, you used to be there, so that number you can't really predict, right? In Court 5? I mean, it just depends on what kind of case it is, what comes forward. I mean, that's really...
You can get a pretty good idea. You can run your 3-year averages, and, you can, I mean, certainly there could be some huge anomaly, just like in any court, but you can budget. And I think McCoy's
He's done a good
pretty
job.
close. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
He's had a lot of
He's had more removals. If he was, I mean,
BS cases.
yeah, he's had a lot more removals this year, so.
Yeah. A lot of them. And
he's-
I'll tell you,
But he's still
the
operating.
judge comes in every 2 or 3 months and sits down with us, and we really look at this, because he's very, very, very aware of what he needs to do, and Brent was, Tim is, we really appreciate that.
Well, he's, if I remember the last email or the conversation or something, he said that he had a bunch more removals, but he was still operating pretty darn close to within his budget, even with a significant amount more removals, so.
And also I think for County Court Law 5, I think this the last year, because they had that situation come up with the juveniles, we increased the hours for their associate to 25 hours per week.
That's right, we had
for
the associate
temporary,
judge
for
there,
temporary
yeah.
services. So that's the additional cost for that you're seeing.
Okay, thank you.
Our law enforcement and corrections, that's your district attorney, your sheriff, your jail, and all 5 of your constables. The one that's screaming out is our jail, and that's mostly overtime cost. We're estimating $15,112,000 on a $14,619,000 budget as a minus $492,000 negative.
And Dale, isn't that, we're still back in the same slot where they can't fill slots, right? Isn't that a big part of this overtime?
Well, that's part of it. They actually, last time the judge and I met with the sheriff, he had only like 10 spots open. He was just
10 spots is still, when you're saying only 10, I know that's a big accomplishment, but I'm thinking,
While he was about 38.
no, but I'm saying, isn't that
200,
why?
You know,
That's the main cause of his overtime, and truthfully, and Steve and I will talk about this when we get to the budget item, we've never really budgeted too much on overtime, just because we knew that his vacancies would offset some of the costs, and we didn't want to inflate the costs, and I know part of the discussion later on, we'll factor that into to count to stop this from happening, but that is true.
I mean, I go back to the same conversation I had before on that. I mean, we've got to do something to either advertise these positions better or something, because there are people who need jobs. I get that being a jailer is a real thankless kind of job, but it's a job, and it pays, and it has benefits, and it's a job. And if you don't have a job, there's got to be people out there to. It's better than nothing.
He does have a lot of
He did do a large advertising campaign with the billboards and all that, and it was very successful. He went from like 20, almost 30 short to now only 10 or 12, which is probably better than it's been in a couple of years.
But we are going to deal with that in our budget list.
So for total law enforcement, we're estimating about a $351,000 over budget, even with under budget, even with the over budget of the jail. We see this, the DA and the other ones have kind of carried some of the cost. Page 5 starts with the social services. Most of them are doing very, very well. $104,000 under budget for the senior community services. $90,000 under budget for social services direct. Total for the social services is $289,978 under budget, which is very good. Our health and safety and sanitation, which is your emergency services, emergency management, 911, environmental enforcement and animal control, they're also all under budget. Total for that is $153,481 under budget. For our agricultural education, which is your ag department, your family and consumer sciences, as well as your county library, they're also all three under budget. Total of $51,351. So total appropriations before transfers, we're estimating $80,008,488 of expense on a budget of $85,459,855, or under budget of $5,451,367. Any questions before I go to transfers?
That is a really important.
Yes.
what's that percentage, Dale? 94,
95.
95?
That's what we operate this county on, is being that much under budget on expenses.
Thanks. I mean, and I think that's a real testament to the work this court has done, the work that every elected official and department head has done to watch their dollars, the budget office. I mean, this is a total team effort, and this is not easy to do, and I would bet there aren't that many counties, maybe or cities, that come in like this. That's pretty impressive, and we've had some big hits that we didn't anticipate. I mean, that mechanical stuff alone, or mechanical engine, or whatever it came in the gas, I mean, that's just staggering for a budget our size. And, it's kind of interesting because people think we're the whole county, right? And then you tell them, well, let's see, the city has about an $800 or $900 million budget, and all in, we have about 100, and they go, what? So, I mean, for that gas bill on the county budget, the size we are, that's a percentage point or two. I mean, that's a big number where, yeah, I mean, that's cranking. So that's a good number, although I get it's not looking that, I mean, it's going to be a little rougher next year to budget because we got some big things coming, but this is impressive and well done, and thanks to all of those people, and again, total team effort on this.
If I might, the court as a whole, we've operated with the premise that vacancies in the budget, when there's a vacancy in the department, we don't allow that department to use those monies for other, transfer those monies to other items. We say that all salary items stay within the salary items, and that's a big part of this float money, but because if we allowed them to move that there, out of the total budget, they'd spend it,
Yeah, we've got several requests every time they come in. They want to use their salary money to cover their costs, and Steve and I get together and no, we're not going to allow them to do this, and without true reason why or emergency situation necessary as well. Talking, yeah.
The only exception is, of course, is the jail. We use that salary that's from the to cover the overtime. So.
Related.
That's a separate thing.
Well, no, it's salary related, though. I mean, it's not being used to purchase a car or something. I mean,
So Dale, our 5.4 million under budget is your projection for the entire budget year of 2015?
Well, that's before transfers.
2016, 2017.
That's before transfers.
Okay, before transfers. You're going to talk about, or somebody's too loud. Yeah, Dale. Yeah.
Now we go to the last page, page 6, and this is where it gets alarming. For transfers, we transfer exactly what was there for all the departments except for the top line. We know we've got a shortcoming in our group health because of some catastrophic injuries and costs that we have coming in. So we're estimating transferring out of the general fund right at $2 million or close to $2 million. So our total appropriations for the year is $91,088,243, or under of $3,451,367. And that's where we kind of eat some of that cost, that savings up, is where we have to cover our funding for our self-insurance fund.
Well, it's better than being 1.6 in the red.
Right. So for estimated actuals, as you'll see, our fund balance ending, as I said earlier in the revenue, our ending fund balance is $18,543,148. Total appropriations for next fiscal year is $109,631,391. As you see, the drop between 15-16 and 16-17 is right at around $3 million. And that's the general fund appropriations for fiscal years 16-17 as estimated. Any questions?
I have a question, and Judge, I know we've kind of talked about it before, but the stadium at the fairgrounds, I mean, that's a responsibility we have still for several more years before we can really have any discussions of what to do with that site. Is that correct? I mean, we're on budget, we're on the bond until what, 20?
With the stadium, yes, the stadium is. We still have the COs out there. I think there were 20-year COs, and that was in 2000.
For our grant year.
Okay.
It opened in 2003. So.
And our operating loss at the fairgrounds is $800,000 every year, down from 1.4 million 10 years ago.
I mean, Edward and that group, they're doing all they can and trying to keep it filled and trying to bring in people and really seeing a potential tie-in with that area now with the outlets and everything else, the new improved library as they're just moving along. And I just think that, there's some promising discussions or suggestions out there what to do, and I know we can't do it, so I just kind of want to remind the public about that it's not that the county doesn't want to move or explore other options. It's just we still have an obligation ourselves for the next several years before we can pay it out, and then see what we can do. But a lot of these facilities, they take hits already. I know City of Corpus Christi.
Oh, yeah.
When we were there, we were having to, still talk about American Bank Center as far as operating costs and all of that. So, I mean, this is just a cost that many communities decide to take, and we have that responsibility. So, just kind of wanted to put that out there.
That's good.
Okay, we're going to move on to tab 4.
Steve, you're up.
Okay, tab 4, page 1. This is the preliminary tax valuation that we received from the appraisal district in April of $27,961,208,297. If you go to page 2, the actual certified appraisal row is $28,263,981,575. You notice that's broken into two portions. One was the $27 billion that's property that's not under protest. The $523,984,821. That's 85% of the property that's under protest. So there's like $612 million under protest, and the appraisal district certifies about 85% of that number. So what they've certified here is the total $28 billion.
Are you going to give us what the new?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, this page here is a breakout, page 3. It's a breakout of our certified tax rolls and the different categories that bring in their money, and then our exemptions, etc. The land totals first. For home sites, we had an increase in home site valuations, home site land of $131,543,447. For non-home site valuations, it was an increase of $416,970,583. And for ag property, it was $91,701,529. So the total market value for land values is $9,032,990,732, which is an increase of $640,215,562. Now, the improvements area, the home sites for increased by $557,405,340. The non-home site valuations increased by $1,104,940,553. The total improvements market value is $21,466,732, which is an increase of $1,662,345,893. So that's the real property. The non-real property, which is personal property and minerals, personal properties decreased by $200,655,765, and minerals increased a slight $10,593,104. So when you take that all together, the total market value of the appraised is $38,211,558,693, an increase of $2,112,498,830. So just right at $2.1 billion. Then they take the adjustment for the homestead cap, And last year, the homestead cap was, adjustment was $635,166,658. This year it's $434,335,616. So it's a change of $200,831,042.
Why
And then
did the
there's-
number of homestead exemptions go down that much? Is there any reason?
Dale, do you have an answer to that?
Not, well, it could be the cap is related to those that are over 65 and veterans, and it could be that we had some of those either sell their house or move into a more retirement type of facility, so we would lose that cap because of that.
Okay.
But actually, that I'd have to, we would have to go to the federal district to see why, what it caused that, but I think that would be the main reason.
Okay.
So that's more revenue, though, coming into the county?
Yes, because the cap gets reduced, we get to bring more revenue in, yes.
Okay.
So you're trying to build affordable housing, that brings everything down, because it's the affordable housing program, when it builds those low-income homes.
Well,
And it could be that they moved from a more expensive home to a lower home, so the cap is not as high because we cap the value.
the cap applies only to those over 65 and or disabled.
You know, Limeberger also had that big program going on, and we saw some benefit of that, where they have gone in and found people who were taking homestead exemptions who were not actually qualified to be taking homestead exemptions. That may have some bearing on it as well.
And that could be very well being these cap properties, so the older.
Well, that would be later on, down below where you actually see your homestead exemptions, that would be shown there. The top is just your cap for your over 65.
Oh, that's
and
just
your
the cap,
veterans and- yeah.
okay, I got you. Okay, sorry.
Then there's a total productivity loss, and that's, in a sense, it's changed 87,397,221. So this year that there's about that much more productivity loss, so that has an impact on us overall. So the total assessed value after those adjustments is $36,537,056,344, a increase from last year by $2,225,932,651. Now the next section is our exemptions, the total exemptions that the county has there, and of course our first one is the homestead exemptions, and our homestead exemption, as you're aware, is our exemption is 20% exemption that we provide for homesteads. And it's increased by $111,862,237 for this year. The over 65 exemption has increased slightly, and increased by $52,635,206. The next one is property tax exemption, and most of this property that's in this group is for, they started several years ago, they started evaluating and putting on the rolls the value of tax exempt properties such as governmental properties, churches, schools, etc. So that number has gone up. Each year they keep appraising those numbers. Disabled persons, it's a slight decrease of $6,186,411. Disabled vets, an increase of $35,469,547. Prorated exempt property, it's a very small number, but it's increased by $2,008,298. Pollution controls, it's gone up, an increase by $28,247,768. And properties that are less than 500, which they take off the road there, is actually decreased by 33,681. Big changes, we have abatements, our abatements starting to come online and under construction, M&G's under construction, and while under construction, they're 100% abatement. So our abatements increased by $360,265,115, and Dale will talk about that later when we do the tax rate calculations, etc. That did have an impact on our available revenue for going forward next year. And then low-income housing, there was decreased by $576,030. So the total of our exemptions for this year, total exemptions $8,833,059,590. That's a increase of $1,262,184,675. So if you take the total assessed value right above the exemption, you take the exemptions out, our net taxable value is $27,739,996,754. And then we also further reduce that by freezed taxable. These are the properties the value of the properties that have been frozen. And that brings the freeze adjusted taxable value to $26,167,231,042. And so these are numbers that you'll see going forward, the different categories we have in there that start out with that 28 million, but it kind of whittles it down when you take exemptions, et cetera, out. Any questions on that? Page 4 is something I've included in here just over the years. People, page 4 is giving you an idea of the difference between the impact of tax changes on residents and commercial properties. This year, the total residential properties increased by 3.76%. And the total commercial and industrial properties increased by 5.14%. So that's kind of a change, I think, from prior years. Prior years, we had a larger impact on our residential. So this shifted to a little bit more increase to the commercials. Any questions on that? The rest of these sheets I just included them there for your review as we go along. I'm not going to go through them. This is what we do get from the tax appraisal. I will, in each area, there's three coverage. They have an ARB approved total, which you see under the first page there, page 5, 2017 certified totals for Nueces County. This particular page is the ARB approved totals, and then they have a total that's under protest yet, and then they also have a grand total of the protest and the ARB approved totals on it. But this is just general information that this is what Dale receives from, and I and the judge received from the appraisal district. Any questions in that area?
Just one, and I may have, so what is the number of, what's the dollar amount, if we have it yet and we may not have, just the new growth? Not
Dale
all.
will get that in the next section.
Okay, sorry. I keep asking ahead of time, my bad.
You're doing fine. Stay with us, buddy, stay with us, stay with us.
Okay, Dale, you're up.
Okay, we're on tab 5,
Step 5.
page 1, where we do comparison of net taxable value.
Cinco.
We have three sections. You'll see the general fund, farm to market, and hospital district. I'll concentrate on the general fund. As you saw in tab 4, page 2, the taxable value from the certified roll was $27,739,996,754. Now, what's not included that, we have railroads and equipment and vehicles in the county, and we get that appraised from the comptroller. We received that not that long ago from the comptroller, and our value for rolling stock is what we call it, is $11,074,057. And as Steve showed also on page 2 of tab 4, you see the value under protest of 85% of $523,984,821. The tax ceiling was also on that first page of $1,576,360,042. So for our particular situations, when we go forward on our taxing value, our net taxable value for us is $26,698,695,590. If you look at the last column, you'll see a percentage increase. The net taxable value for the general fund increased 3.89%. We do the same calculations for the farm to market and hospital district, and I'll just go to the percent increases. You'll see a net percent increase for the net taxable value for the farm to market of 5.23%, and for the hospital district of 5.49%. And this is where Steve was saying there's a difference. The difference between the general fund and the road fund and the hospital district is those that are under abatement. Those that are under abatement are not calculated as part of your taxable value, so that's why the county's general fund only saw a 3.89% increase in taxable value. Any questions on net taxable value?
Taxable value, meaning evaluations increased,
That's what the valuation increase, yes.
not new growth, but just,
Total value.
The net taxable, I'm sorry, but the net taxable value is the number that we work with. And that number is $26,698,000 for the general fund, which means that a penny on the tax rate is about $2.6 million. Just put that in the back of your mind and think about it, okay?
Okay, with that, we go to page 2. We're going to show the general fund effective tax rate calculation. This will also be brought up on Wednesday the 9th. As we show forward, our $27,739,000,000 taxable value is from the certified roll. The 85% of the value under protest, $523 million. The railroad rolling stock of $11 million, and the tax-free that we spoke before as the net taxable value of $26,695,590. From that value, we have to subtract the value of the increase in value of the property we have under our current TIFs. We currently have 2. We have the downtown management TIF as well as the Padre Island TIF. The captured appraised value, or the increase in value, is $447,604,696. As Commissioner Chesney was asking, the new property, including that value, was $610,353,421 for a net adjusted taxable value of $25,640,737,473. We then calculate what last year's levy was after adjustments, and that levy was $75,699,257. If you take the adjusted value divided by 1,000 from the levy, you'll get a general fund effective tax rate of 0.295230 for fiscal year 17. And going by the current rates for what the comptroller has at 8%, the maximum rollback rate for the general fund is 0.323128. And just for clarification, the value of new property would bring in this divided by
like a drum roll? Is that a drum roll?
1.8 million.
1.8 million of new revenue?
Roughly, yes.
Of 1.8 million to not raise taxes if we adopted the effective tax rate, we would have 1.8 million new growth. Is that what you're
Value of
asking?
new property, yes.
Sorry?
Now, that might be
No, wait.
eating up on certain adjustments, because the way we adjust value from last year's roll to this year's roll, the 1.8 million is the value of the new property. The 610 million at the effective rate gets you 1.8.
But that isn't,
That's not right.
well, we'll get the
get there.
number. That's
Still not my number, right?
your number. Okay.
You got calculation?
Still not my number. Keep going.
We're getting there. Okay.
Good.
For page 3, we did the same calculations for the farm to market. The effective rate for the farm to market lateral road is .003736, and the maximum rollback rate of the 8% is .004034. For the hospital district on page 4, the effective rate is .121296. The maximum rollback is .131000. Any question before we go to the page 5?
Hold on.
Just tell me when I'm supposed to ask my question.
Just next page, page 6.
Take a deep breath.
Now, page 5, we kind of show you the last year's adopted rate, which was the last year's
hold on.
effective rate.
Hold on, just a minute.
Real quick on this, the effective tax rate, farm to market, I guess, the rollback, it's 0.00 point or 0.004.
Or 004.
Effective is 0.003. Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay, on page 5, we just kind of show you a cumulative total of each. The first one on the very far to the left, you'll see the 2016-2017 adopted rate, and those were the adopted rate, which was the effective rate of last year. Our general fund was .259816, our debt service .44276, and our farm to market was .003899, for a total tax rate of .307991.
Where's Road and Bridge? Did you fold that in?
Road fund.
Road fund.
Road fund.
Okay, I want to go, I'm sorry. I want to
This
go
farm
back
to
to
market,
page
the
2.
appraisal doesn't call it the farm to market.
Pardon?
The farm to market, the page 3 is road fund. They call it, the appraisal district calls it farm to market, so we have to call it what the appraisal district has is. Farm to market, for us, it's a road fund.
That's the road fund?
Page 3 is the calculation effective rate for the farm to market or road fund.
So that's our road and bridge?
Yes. Now, on page 5, the middle column shows you our calculation of our 2017-18 effective tax rate, or what the state is now calling no new tax rate. The general fund is .252249. The debt service is .042981. And the road fund is .003736, or the total effective rate of .298966. The maximum rate for the rollback rate at the 8% is .272428. The debt service to be fully funded at what's needed for the debt service requirement is .050700. And the maximum rollback rate for the farm to market is .004034, or a total of .327162. The column at the very bottom should show you the hospital district. Last year's adopted rate was .126836. Current effective rate .121297, and the maximum rollback rate .131000.
Before you move on, the difference between last year's tax rate and the calculated effective tax rate is 9/10 of 1 penny. So what the judge had said earlier, 1 penny, you lose $2.6 million. That's the difference in how much money you take in from one to the other.
Say that again. Wait.
It's a penny.
Right.
It's a penny difference between. It's close to a penny difference between what the
Effective rate and the rollback.
current effective tax rate
Current rate, yes.
and the current rate and the effective tax rate calculation. And so there's, when he goes on to the next page, that really shows you that why that.
About 800 basis points.
Right, you don't lose it, you just don't get it.
Well, yes, that's correct.
That's
Right.
correct. That's correct.
You could get it, but you don't get it.
Correct.
So Dale, I'm sorry, I lost you there. I was jumping back a page there, but on page 5, in the middle column, under the total effective tax rate, you've got two numbers there. What are those? The .009025 and 007567?
Which one?
On page 5?
Middle
Get the right-
column, we
give
have
them
the
the
general
right
fund,
page.
.25,
You may have the wrong
2249.
page.
Yeah, and you go down, you have a total effective tax rate of .29866.
966. Correct.
And on my page below that, there's two more numbers.
There should be 3. That should be the hospital district.
Yeah, go give them that page.
Sorry.
Go look and see what he has, Teresa.
Well,
I
think
got
Dale
spare
had
one.
a
You spare
couple.
one?
No, the hospital district separate, above, between those, hey, look, what are those two numbers? Russ?
That came out.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, that should,
okay, so this is wrong.
yes, sir.
Okay, I kept wondering what those numbers were.
Me too.
Okay.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Okay,
Okay,
now I'm square.
we're ready to
Rock and roll.
totally confuse everybody.
This packet.
Page 6.
Yeah, no, I
Whoop,
know it.
I don't have page 6.
Teresa, you didn't have page 6.
I don't have page 6.
6, 7, 8, yes, those 3 pages, Commissioner,
Under tab 5?
I don't know.
under tab 5.
Well, or maybe, it looks like I've got a repeat. I've got page 2, 3, 4, and 5 all over again. Okay, so maybe my first 2 and 3, are they wrong? I've got a duplication here. All right, I'm gonna pull those out. So there's that page.
Stick correct.
You got a good set there.
2,
Steve.
is that one right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Take that over.
That one.
Teresa, and just give them this one here.
4,
Yeah, that's correct. Hello, Steve, I think he's good.
okay, and then 5,
6,
6.
7, 8.
All right, now I'm good. It's
Yes,
dated,
sir. That's
okay, that's the correct date?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry, they duplicated those pages in my book
Okay.
twice. Okay, so we're on page 6.
Page
6.
6.
Should we wait for Commissioner Chesney?
Yeah.
Your Honor,
Bathroom break.
I need to take a quick break too.
All right, let's take about 5 minutes, guys. We've been sitting here 2 hours.
All right, now the exciting part.
Yep.
We got page 6. We're going to calculate the possible new increase in revenue from the effective tax rate for the general fund. On the right-hand side of the column, you'll see the tax rates that we said before. The general fund, .252249, .042981 for the debt service, and the road fund, the FTM rate is .003736 for a total of .298966. The taxable property that we had before in the previous pages is $26,698,695,000. We take that value from the rate at the top, because we're only doing the general fund, and we come up with a levy of $67,347,192. We factor in some frozen levies that we're able to recover, $2,799,937, for a total taxable general fund levy of $70,147,129. We always calculate a 95% collection rate for our budget purposes. So we're estimating the budget at the effective rate would be $66,639,772. We subtract out the last year's budget adopted rate of $65,885,175 for a net increase, if we choose the effective tax rate for the general fund, of $754,597. Any questions on the general fund's effective rate?
I guess just why do you think when last year it was like 2.8 million or something?
2.3.
2.3, so do you think it's just our sales tax, not sales tax, we don't get that? What's the what do you think the difference is?
Well, you have to remember that when like this year, we're doing the 2017 certified tax rolls, and it's got 500 and something million worth of property under protest. The value that we calculate, the levy that we calculate the effective rate on, is already got that figured out from last year to current. So they calculate what the current levy would be. The current levy would be more or less than what we budgeted at, so that kind of factors into these losses and gains of revenue. So it's kind of, this is the way it goes.
So this could go up.
Well, for budget purposes, the taxable value that we have at the effective rate, budgeted purposes only, would bring us $754,000 more.
No, I'm saying, so can that 754 go up based on what you were just explaining with the revenue differences and the levies and
No.
things of that nature? No? Okay. And so tell me again why you think there's a
It's
big,
because how we calculate the effective rate. We do the effective rate based on,
no, I'm sorry, why do you think the difference between the 2.3 and the 754?
it's
We
because
still have
how
growth.
the value is calculated because of going from last year when the certified roll was sent to us to the values now. There's differences because of adjustments and pluses and minuses based on ARB hearings or property came off the roll or whatever reason it was from when they certified it last time they provided to us, and the roll we had to use this year from last tax values to calculate the effective rate.
So you could have a similar year of growth, of new growth, and have this big a, because I mean, this was a pretty big growth year.
Depends on how the ARB went through the balances. Remember, we only calculate 85% of the balances under ARB protest. So there was $540 million this year of ARB protest. Last year, there was probably close to $200 million. We had the list, $300 or $400 million in protests, and all that could went in the favor of the taxpayers, which means the value went down, which means our levy values went down, which lowered our effective rate, which caused our budget numbers to be off.
Okay.
And again, it's about 800 basis points.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what we do if we would assume for general fund purposes only, for the effective tax rate. We're asked to do what the rate was if we use the prior year's tax rate. The prior year's tax rate was .259816 for the general fund. That's the only one we're going to concern ourselves with. So through the calculations, we're estimating that the general fund 2017-18 budget would be $68,559,048, or $2.6 million above last year's budget.
Wait, election, sorry. What page are you on?
I'm on page 7.
So say that again, I'm sorry.
If we use last year's tax rates were last year's effective rate, the general fund was .259816. Using the same taxable value, we come up with a $68,559,048 proposed budget for the 17-18. Comparing that to last fiscal year, that's $2,673,873 more. Or if you compare that to the effective rate, that's about $2 million more.
Meaning increase in taxes.
Yes.
Yes.
The last calculation we have on page 8 is using the maximum rollback rate. We just we provide this just because they were one of the things we always have to do. So a maximum rollback rate is .272428. Using that, if we use that rollback rate, the general fund would receive $71,757,926, or $5,872,751 more in taxable revenue. Those are my 3 calculations for the effective rate, rollback rate, and last year's current rate. Any questions?
Page 8, that's just based on whether, if you would have used the maximum rollback rate of 8%.
Correct.
Which we didn't do.
Correct. We're not.
Why do we even include this?
It's something the state requires us to calculate. They want us to do this so the tax entities know what the rollback rate is. And right now they're in special session to see if they want to lower that rate. And they're proposing 6%.
Yeah, they're proposed, well, that's,
It's a requirement of the Truth in Taxation Bill.
so going back to page 7, just real quickly, Dale.
Page 7.
The So the 2016, 27 tax value, let's see, general fund. So this is the calculation using the 2016, 2017 tax value.
Correct.
Tax rate.
Tax rate.
Tax rate.
Yeah, tax rate, I'm sorry. You're saying that the increase in general fund tax revenue budget would be almost 2.7 million.
Correct.
That's leaving the current effective tax rate as the current tax rate moving forward.
For 2017,
For 2017, 2018, we would pick up $2.6 million in additional revenue.
But that's due to growth.
No,
It's increase.
that's due to increasing the tax rate
Above the effective rate.
above the effective tax rate.
Well, that'd be using the current tax rate above the
Above the effective
calculated.
rate. Yes.
Above the new effective tax rate.
I got you.
Right.
Yeah, about
Okay.
.9's not a full
Yeah.
penny.
Okay, I got you.
Okay?
Before we move on from the judge, now this is on the agenda tomorrow, just, it has to be a regular agenda, so you're going to just formally receive this same thing tomorrow. You don't take any action on it, but as soon as Dale presents this to court, and then they'll be posting it in the paper.
Yeah, we'll present it tomorrow as part of the court, and then once it's approved, it goes through the paper for several times for the hospital district and us for notifying them of the effective rate and the rollback rates. And then we have several hearings depending on what the court wants to do.
And what are we approving?
Tomorrow you're just receiving.
Just receiving?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wednesday you're receiving.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm
At
sorry.
the court meeting on Wednesday. You said
Wednesday
tomorrow.
you receive the effective rates.
Yeah.
Notification of the effective and rollback rates.
Okay, so on page 6, that was if we just use the effective tax rate, we'd show an increase in tax revenue of $754,000. That's what we're saying is new growth.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That's $600 million worth of new growth, plus or minus.
Correct.
And I think that's what you were asking, Brent.
Yes,
A while ago. Okay. So we have the effective tax rate, we have the current tax rate, which is above the new effective tax rate, but it's the old current effective tax rate, and it's about a penny.
Correct.
And then the rollback rate, which we have to show under truth in taxation. Okay, thank you, Dale. Tab 6. Steve, you need to explain to the court what these tab 6 and 7 and all are, please.
We're doing the whole thing today.
You bet, we're going through.
And then what's tomorrow?
Well-
If we have to have some more time, we'll spend tomorrow.
Tab 6,
And Mike's got to be gone tomorrow. He's got a funeral tomorrow. Yeah. Okay,
tab 6, this is the bottom line of all, puts together our whole general fund budget, past history, requested from the departments, and then what I propose. And this is, this proposal, which is the column which has orange on top of it. It is proposal which I've gone through and looked at departments' budgets and come back with a proposal. Primary in this stuff, knowing where we're at in the budget, we stayed very tight. Departments stay pretty tight. Most of our departments don't ask for a whole lot of stuff, but this is based on their what I see is what they should have for going forward. And so I think on tab 7 here, Judge, I'll just tab 6, I should say. I'll go through it line for line, and then 7 and 8 we'll look at as far as making any variances to what you have in tab 6. So the first thing, if you look across the top, the 2016-17 is the very first column. That's the budget we had last year. The next column, the 17-18 requested, this is department's request for budget. The next line is the increase or decrease from departments. The next line, next column, I should say rather than line, is the proposed budget for departments. The next column, change to the request, this is the amount of change I've made to the requested departments. And the last column is the change between the current budget, the 2016-17 budget, and the proposed budget. So going through this, the first departments, through the commissioners, all our departments, actually going down to the elections department, you can see that there's very minor requests for changes, and I made some minor changes to those departments. There were several departments that I made, those $100 changes I made to the commissioner's court was based on the cell phone coverages. Costs were not really what we had in there, so there, again, I made minor changes in those. Cell phone, not all, if you hit, I have a phone, if you have a county cell phone, we put a budget in it for cell phone. Well, we're not paying as much as was in the budget, so I took it out of the budget. But when you come to elections department, 1790, the requested amount was $853,167 from the election department. And in these areas, because there are big changes, you can see I put in $578,167. That's a $275,000 change. But when we get to tab 7, page 2, I've listed, and we can slip there so you can just see there for real quickly. In this tab, I've listed all the big changes, all the abnormal changes, so you will go through those individually later and make decisions on what you want to do with these particular items that are big changes. So I've kept it, I didn't want to just put these in arbitrarily and not have you be able to place consideration for them. So even though there's a big change, what I put in there, we're going to consider those going forward. And the same thing when you go to the IT department, had a $500,000 increase in request, and I haven't included it yet. We will include that on tab 7, page 2. The auditor. Yes, sir.
IT had requested $536,000 in increase in their budget,
Yes.
and you disallowed nearly all of that.
Well, I didn't disallow it. I just, if you go to tab 7, and if we can do these separate, Judge, would you just go to those right away?
Well, let me help there just a little. That's principally the cloud. That was the cloud and some other things that they need, that IT said they need to do, which add up to over $500,000. So rather than making it a general fund request, what we're going to do in just a minute is show you that we're going to ask you to put that on a CO and help us pay for that cloud cost and the other things, because it is a real big deal. But we're suggesting we take it out of the general fund because we don't have much general fund money, and we're not denying that we need to do it, and we'll show it to you in just a moment. We're not denying it. What we're saying is we want to move that to the possibility of the court doing a CO issue, a very small CO issue in just a moment, and put the cloud and that other thing over there. So that's where that's headed. We're not denying it. It's got to be done, but it doesn't have to be funded this way. So if you guys can work through this with us for just a few minutes, we'll come back to these as you have questions. Same thing on election expense. That's got to be moved around. What we're trying to do is take as much money out of the general fund hit all the way through here Because in just a few minutes, you're going to see why.
And some of
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
some of what I've taken out,
Yeah.
is going to be put back in. It's still going to be general fund. But again, as I said earlier,
Yeah.
they're big items, and we wanted the court to take a look at.
Yeah, we
Put
need,
those in.
we need a lot of input on this 7, 8, and 9. And we'll get there in just a second, guys.
The same with,
Yeah.
if you go down to the auditors, they have a smaller request of 42,000. But again, we move forward for that to page, to tab 7, so the court can look at that and know what that's for. Then the bottom one there, 1285, the general administration, and I've asterisks that and a note on the bottom. This 1285 number of 3,808,877, it includes the regular $2 million, I would say again, $1.2 million is what we typically been budgeting for contingency. So, and we've done that over the years. So that part of that 3 million is 1.2 million of contingency for general fund. But the second $1 million is in there for Flint Hills, and there's not been a settlement with Flint Hills. And we put $1 million aside for the similar type of things that we had with Valero. Now we're doing the same.
But they're fighting those things too, right?
Say again?
Didn't I understand the appraisal district is fighting this now more than just laying down as they have in the past on these
But
issues?
they didn't make a settlement here yet, right? I don't know whether we'll go to a lawsuit. It sounds like they may want to go to a lawsuit.
It was in the paper, Brent. You may have seen it last week. They sued Delmar and the hospital district. They just hadn't named us yet.
Judge,
I guess that's because they're not agreeing to settle.
if you would go to quickly to tab 15, page 21, and right behind that 21 is a 21A, but it's that article that was in the papers right there, talking about.
Why would they sue why would they sue the appraisal district? Why would
No.
they sue, wouldn't they sue the appraisal district? Because they're the one who does it all.
Well, we have to pay for it.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, wouldn't they?
Yeah, the appraisal district ones have to fight it, yes.
So,
Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay.
Anyway, but we've made a contingency in there. With the Valero, we needed it, and this is, what this is, there's a suit already for the current year that they didn't settle, and then going into next year, so, we'll be in 2 years of this again, the same way we were with Valero.
We got into this same thing with Valero when I was at the Toloso Midway Board. And what we did when the appraisal district went to court against them, Toloso hired our own attorney and went as and there's a proper name for it, an intervener, something, so that we had our attorney sitting at the table with the negotiations as well as the appraisal district.
Are there any questions on page 1 of the tab 6? Okay, going on to page 2. Page 2 is all our building facilities, primarily they're general funded. Most of them are under Glenn, some of them are under Edward or others that are in the general fund. Again, as Dale pointed out in the revenue, the biggest one that jumps out on you is the Department 1500, the mechanical maintenance. The requested input increase was $757,000. And we'll talk about that in tab 7. I did not put it in here, but when we go to tab 7, page 2, we'll relook at that. Building superintendent, which is has a $70,000 increase with that $70,000 increase is basically, which I included in here, is the one position in Public Works, which Annette Matei is in, that's always been under Public Works, but the general fund reimburses the road fund for that because it's not a road fund function that she has. So we're just cleaning that up, and rather than put it in here and transfer money, we're just putting it back where it should be. So this position is moved from the Public Works, from the Road Department to the general fund. And that pretty much, any questions on the page 2? Page 3. Page 3 is Administrative of Justice, and you see there's a whole bunch of changes that we have here, smaller changes, but what this boils down to is what we did last year. First of all, we moved the roving court reporters out of the district judge's office into court administration. So you see a big increase in court administration by $167,000. And we also last year approved a raise for the court reporters. So the net changes you see in, let's say, the 28th District Court, that $15,000 increase is made up of two things. Part of it, when they took the roving court reporter away, reduced the total amount, but the increase in salaries, and they were sharing these things, the overall increase in salaries for court reporters offset that. And so the bottom line on this whole Department of Administration and Justice, when it equals all out, but what we added into Administration and Justice and took away from the courts, it's only a 17,000 down the bottom, a 17,853 increase overall in this whole section. And again, the cleaning up was done from what we had changes from last year's approved changes to their budgets. Then moving to, any questions there? Page 4. The first one, the district attorney had a request of $98,000. I took out $73,000 of that. He had $40,000 of that increase was for additional temporary salaries. The rest was just small things in the line, but we kept it pretty close to what they had for budget last year. We'll look at later, there was a consideration for a position that they wanted for a new program. That may be doable, but we didn't add anything to temporary salaries. The Sheriff's Department increases. The bottom line is, as he had requested $83,000. His total, the net total decreased his budget by $61,000, and that's primarily because the fuel budget they had for the last several years has been over budgeted. With the cost of gasoline right now, it's about double what they needed. So we took that out of there this year, and that's the reason it has a net decrease in there. Of course, the other big one is the jail. I didn't include that 455, but we will discuss it and most likely put it back in there for tab when we look at it at tab 7, page 2. The other one, go ahead.
455,
$455,000 for the jail, and that's overtime request. We've, rather than going over, we've been under budget, total budget, because of the usages, and so looking at this year, we really need to put some in there. He's still going to be using vacant position salary to cover some of their overtime.
So how much are we putting in there?
It's on, we'll get to it in just 1 second, Joe.
Okay.
Tab 7.
All right.
if you would, please.
So the total overall in the administration, law enforcement and correction is $2,000 increase, but when we look at the others, that's going to jump.
It'd be a lot more than that.
The senior community services, you note that there's a $56,000 decrease. What that is the director, Edward Ware is director of community services. He's also inland parks, and his whole salary had been prior coming out of general fund. The whole salary is paid out of senior community services center, so we're correcting that, putting half of his salary and benefits into the parks department. So we're moving it out of here, $56,979 out of the general fund, and moving it over to the inland parks. That's basically the big things we have in here. As far as you see, the total appropriations line item right now is $32,000 less than what we had last year. Again, when we look at tab 7, that will change some.
Comment on the county library, please.
On the county library, there was a request for $40,000 of software and operating with the library equipment over there. And my understanding in talking to Lance, IT director, that if we go to the new cloud, that will take care of some of this need, so we deferred that for right now. If it doesn't cover everything, it'll more than likely come under a capital improvement or capital cost anyway, not operation. Any other questions? And the transfers, the next page, the transfers are I'll comment on basically 3 things. The first one is salary reimbursement. The second line for the road fund, that's $74,196. I decreased that, and as I said before, in prior years we were just transferring that money from the general fund to the road fund. By moving the position over into the general fund, there's no need for that transfer anymore. The second big item is, the judge mentioned earlier, the sales tax revenue. A good portion of that revenue gets transferred to the road fund. I'm recommending to reduce that amount this year by $400,000, because the road fund has been operating with a fairly decent fund balance in their budget going forward. I think we can do not need that. In fact, every year his fund balance is growing some, so they had projected, I think, over this year about $3 million of fund balance in the road department. Then the last one I'll comment on, the $51,980. That is the money we took out of the general fund. That general fund had been paying for the parks director. We're transferring that money over to the parks department, inland parks department. So the sum total of appropriations and transfers out is $470,000 less than what we had last year. Again, there will be some adjustments to that as we look at it. Next, if no questions there, we move on to tab 7, tab 7, page 1, these are costs that we need to, that's hitting us, and they're listed like this because all these costs are spread out against, they're all related to personnel costs, and so we haven't broken down to each individual's department. We just know that the sum total is going to be. So the first thing, the continuance pay, which is a one pay step increase for everybody. We do this on 3-year, 3 years, every 3 years we give a step increase to our employees. And this year it's a small group. Last year we give it to the big group of employees. This year it's about 140 employees, and that step increase is going to cost $147,576. And then the other one known is our law enforcement salary adjustment. The agreement called for increases for this year, and that totals about $443,369. Our retirement plan increased about 6.06% in rate, and that's a $294,515 increase. Then lastly, we've talked about this last court, but our employment health insurance, the general fund's share of the increase is going to be $900,000. So those four costs are costs that are hitting our general fund, which are new from last year.
Steve, what departments were the 140? What did you say? I didn't catch that part.
It's all general fund departments, but not everybody within them. I mean, every department has an employee in it who's that's been here for 3 years and ready for his next step increase. So it's spread out through all our departments. Once the budget is approved, I mean, ultimately when the budget comes out, Dale will have spread that into each individual department. But it's a summation of, we know who the individuals are already, and we have the total of what's there. And
Every year, we have a group of employees who celebrate a 3-year anniversary.
right,
And they get a step increase automatically.
and
2.5%.
yes, sir. And the big losing it. The big group is is last year we had. Well, that's it.
So while you're recovering, Steve, let me ask a quick question. Your Honor, are we
Yes.
now taking, as all other entities have been required, are we our retirement liability number fully on our books now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We're funded at about 87% right now.
So we're only, our unfunded amount is,
Pretty good.
yeah, that's pretty darn
It's
good.
very good, and if the market holds, it'll close the gap.
It'll close the gap. Yeah. Okay.
But we're fully funding the requirement. City for years did not fully fund the requirement, and they got in a huge.
Okay,
Now, where we are, right there, remember, the effective tax rate gave us $734,000. Today's tax rate gave us $2.3 million. Just
2.6.
2.6. So, let's go from
Okay, this page, page 7, I referred to it, tab 7, page 2. I referred to as we went through the general fund budget. And this is a list of additional expenses that we're recommending that the court consider. The first one is it's a $12,000 increase to reclassify two positions in elections. In elections, they with the equipment they have down there, Kara feels she needs a higher rate paid position in the computer and electronic starts area. The second thing is election cost. And as Dale said earlier, we had not funded this in prior years, and that's why we had that $275,000 deficit last year. And working with the judge and Kara and Dale and I, we feel that $300,000 should cover those costs going this coming year. And of course, what we have there is a constitutional election in the primaries, and the primaries, the county pays for all the early voting.
Also runoff for the primary.
Yep. Okay, IT, a portion of the $565,000 that IT wanted will still be funded on the general fund, and that's for the internet T1 lines that we keep increasing with the service, trying to get service, and then we moved the telephone position and the handling of the network wiring essential from Public Works to IT, and so there's additional costs that IT has this year going forward. I really couldn't take it out of Public Works because Public Works, as Department of said, their M&R, they've been really up to the limit.
We need to go back, I think, Steve, and look at the proper nomenclature, because T1s and ISDNs, I don't think that's correct.
I took it out of Lance's input, but I'll go back and.
Yeah, I thought we had eliminated all the ISDNs and T1s, but we can check on that.
The next one, any other questions on that, Commissioner? The auditor had asked that $42,000 we saw earlier, and Dale, why don't you, I think this is a software for.
This is, we have a software now for our group health and other benefits that the employees have. They will be able to go online and manage their group health, their dental, their vision, their deferred compensation, not deferred, flexible spending kind of accounts. They'll be able to manage it for that. The good news is, starting this year, we will have open enrollment online. It will start in the last 2 weeks of August. We'll have it open online where they can go from any place, anywhere, and be able to log in and make any changes they want for open enrollment. And they won't have to come to the courthouse. This is a good management of the funds, and we just need the additional $42,000 to cover annual maintenance for the software.
The next item 5 and 6, we're recommending to increase the South Texas Military Facilities Task Force funding by $15,000, and we're going to take the $25,000 out of the windstorm which we've had in the past. Then item 7, at this time, I think until we get resolution on the gas thing, it'd be prudent that we have included in our budget, at least as a contingency, the $750,000, and I think as Kirsten keeps telling me that's not enough, but if the meters are right, but I think it would be prudent for us to keep a contingency in our budget for that.
And just for a note, if we do put that in, we're going to call that a contingency that won't be able to be used that other than for that particular use.
Right. And then the maintenance repair, just like Glenn is, in fact, I know that right now he's telling me that he's basically spent his maintenance repair for a year, and of course every day we have these elevators going down, et cetera, so we're recommending that we increase M&R by $150,000 there. The next three items are 10, 11, and 12. 9, 10, 11, I should say, are the first one, the risk assessment. That's the program that the district judges and Judge Watts had come down and briefed the court to do risk assessments to help move and get people out of the jail and on bonds and NPR bonds, et cetera. So that to do that, it would be $121,000 is what they're requesting. Same with
That was their total request for that amount?
Those two probationary.
Two probationary?
two probation officers. There will be some capital requirements, but our general fund capital, we don't need to increase the budget to take that
Okay.
up.
Okay, good deal.
And then the next one is the jail court, the visiting judges and temporary court reporters to do more jail court. This last year, they ran out of money, and for 6 months, we didn't have a jail court. And then pretrial, in the pretrial area, they came and asked for 2 positions, and in talking to them up there, I think that they agree that temporaries could serve the purpose that they're needing, and so was recommending that they have some additional temporary salary to be able to run that. And essentially, as I explained to me, and I understand it, is if you put more people on bail, if the risk assessment is putting more people out there on bail, they need better tracking of those people in the form of a pretrial. They all come and register there, and they keep tracking of them, and so when it's time to go back to court, they can find them. Item 12 is juvenile probation, and this is reclassification of one position, and essentially, Homer's been asking for about 3 years, and I think he's justified that this is a position that does much more for him if he can upgrade the position. District Attorney, of course, in his presentation, he told you about the cite and release program, and basically it involves one new position, and that's $41,500 is really one position that he's asking for.
One position and what's one clerk or something, or?
He'd asked for one position and a clerk, but he's willing, he's settled, he needs this position with his clerks and the officer. He said he can get.
Because I'm thinking, again, I'm looking at the judges over here and everybody else. This is I like this program, really, I did, to get released, and it's going to probably save a lot of overtime from the jail, too. You're going to cut back on people going to jail. So I think you're talking another 20,000 or 30, 70, make it 75,000. But, I think he'll have a good program to deal with, and he's going to have to pull somebody else out to work the program from his, you got a clerk, you're going to pull her out somewhere else, so then he's going to come back and say, well, we're going to be short another clerk, so I think what we're doing is already, might as well just do maybe, I'm thinking $75,000,
And that was my concern too, is was this fully funding the entire program as it was presented, and so that would be my concern as well, that, the way it was presented was
I like
a
this
larger
program.
package, and I know he's asked for many other things, that's not the point here, but at least for the cite and release, I feel that I agree, Commissioner.
It's a good program.
I met with Judge Manigro, Teresa and I did, and when it came down there, this was the position he really wanted to fill. And as you'll see later, in fact, this is the only new position. This is the only new position that we're recommending to the court.
Whole court.
Yeah, well, and that's fine, but I just still, if we're going to do that position, might as well do a complete complete thing and not, I mean, he's pulling from here. I know he's gonna be pulling the clerks from somewhere else, so.
But if she came and she agreed and she talked to you about it, then, I mean, he's aware, the DA is aware, and I'm okay with that.
Yes, and we never asking for other positions on there, but not necessarily
Okay,
tight.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
And then moving forward from there, the jail overtime, Dale and I estimate that we need to put about 350,000 back in there for additional overtime. It's not the full 455,000, but
But that's also including with the salaries that are gonna be there. They were not unfilled salaries, they're gonna be used also
yes,
for overtime.
yes, sir.
So you're still gonna be jump over $400,000
Yes.
anyway. That's a lot of overtime.
Number 15 is, this is during the current year, we purchased software for the human services, and it's in place, but there's $24,000 annual maintenance cost in that, so that's a new item going forward for next year. That when we bought the software, we knew we were going to, the first year it was covered under the contract with buying it, but we need that going forward. So the next two items, the first one is per diem increase. In fact, the judge early on, we haven't increased this for a long time, and so when Dale sat down and looked at the number, in numbers wise, he's estimating to increase from $36 to $48 per day for per diem. It's going to be 5,000. And that's obviously an estimate, but it's not a huge number that's going to cost us. And it will it'll give you breakfast and lunch, not dinner.
Another cup of coffee.
I had a question on, so this number, I mean, there's not anything that we follow from the feds as far as the number per diem or anything like that, I know that with the state, when I was with the state, we followed a certain number, and just something to consider maybe in the future. I remember the per diem on travel days, it was the first and last days were shorter, were a smaller amount, knowing that the middle days where you were there, the full day cycle, that was a full amount. So I don't know if that's something to consider. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's very small.
It is.
That we're talking about, but I think that, just in general, we take that into account. Not that people are going wild and crazy with their money, but that was one of the things that the state took into consideration. I think it was like 27 for your first and your back day, because you're coming or traveling only half a day and only need to maybe cover a meal or two rather than 3 full meals in the middle. So just something to think about in the future. Because I know that this may be just 5, but if we look at all the departments, I'm sure it would add up even more than that. So just
one of the things that the auditor does do is with everybody in the travel claim, if they go to a conference and there's a meal provided for the conference, that a third of that per diem is taken away from it. So in the first and last days, like you say, if they
Yeah, I got up and drove to Austin the other day and came back the same day and got 0.
yeah, well,
I got some money for it about here.
I don't agree with that one. I know what you're saying, because that's happened to me many
Can I
times.
buy you lunch? Should've gotten a meal, Judge, at least a meal.
Yeah.
Can I buy you lunch today?
I'll take that. But seriously, we raised it to 36 a few years ago. But you're right, John. I don't think we can ever keep pace with what state or federal does. We just can't get there.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that they're doing it a little bit less, so I appreciate what we're taking a stance here to say that we
We'll
recognize
see how
it
this
is
helps
more.
and see what does, if you all approve it. So, okay.
$10.
The next item, and we'll have to bring this list back to the court ultimately for formal approval, but we're recommending now that the change in direction, that the salaried employees to be a salaried employees, they didn't change that bottom line number that required people to be hourly. We're recommending that we move a number of the people who we changed from salary to hourly and change it going forward next year, moving back into a salaried area. And Julie and Dale and I are looking at that list and will come with, Julie's not recommending that we do everybody, but a good portion of them we're going to recommend come back. And in doing that, we spend about $50,000 extra in overtime, I guess, this year.
I think that's one of the, I think it's a good thing to do.
Well, it is, because you have people that,
It's hard to control
the
it.
time
too.
it's for a lot of those people, it's time people problem. You know, our veteran service officer, I know that we don't pay him a dime in overtime. I just know he cannot be logging all his hours out there. But the airport manager, you know, they got moved into an hourly rate where they operate whenever they have to. So anyway, that potentially could save us $50,000, depending upon how many people we have there. And then the last one, in meeting with Commissioner Chesney and the Park Board and Scott, their budget going forward for next year, there's fund balances that continue to come down, and so for budgeted purposes and for moving forward, we'll recommend that they get an additional $300,000 transferred over there for operating cost. Potentially, next year they'll be getting more revenue with ultimately opening the RV parks they have out there, and Scott's got some pretty good size estimates of revenue, but you can't bank on that revenue until you have it in hand. So the recommendation is that we would increase that transfer. And so what's being recommended, additional
Okay,
costs.
that transfer is for operating, only for operating funds?
That'd be for operating fund, yes.
Because I could say the same thing for inland parks, huh?
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So the total net additional costs of this group of numbers I have here is $2,282,500. Are there any comments on any of these items other than that? Okay, let's go to page 8, and this kind of brings into, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, page 3 of tab 7, yes, next page. Here's a recommended list of projects that we are suggesting we do with CO funds. And the first one is $200,000 to get our railroad crossing and get proper paving markings. They haven't been done for forever. And this is, Public Works is estimated that cost to do that. The second item is we're recommending using $300,000 go to inland parks. They have the major plumbing repairs and routing the plumbing and a new roof requirement for the 83 yard. Then the IT department, we're recommending that the first year as we go into the system, we can use CO money, which is a $350,000. Now, that will be the first year only. Follow-on years, the cloud-based operating costs will have some of those continued, and that ultimately will have to come out of general funds in year 2, 3, and thereon. And $50,000 for software for disaster recovery. It probably doesn't cover the full disaster recovery, but we have to, IT will have to take a look at how these are estimated numbers, they're not precise. So if the cloud doesn't cost the full $350, or either way, they can move the money. Then I think the last one, which I think Kara's talked to you personally, but the court as a whole hasn't talked about, and that's replacement of our voting machines. If we're going to replace the voting machines, the only way we can do that is using CO money, and combined with, we do have a sinking fund for voting machines, so every time they rent a voting machine out, when the city pays us for that, there's a portion of that money that goes into the sinking fund for voting machines, and then there's also some operating special revenue accounts that they have also. It's all money that comes from the other entities. So right now, there's about $700,000 in the sinking fund and operating fund that Kara understands that she can use this for voting machines, and Dale verified the money's there. So we would recommend that the voting machines as a whole is close to $3.8 million. So we would use $700,000 of our special revenue monies we have, but have to do COs for about $3.1 million of it.
But with these machines, I mean, are the current machines that we have just past their projected life, or?
I think they're 14 years old. Yes, they are.
Bill, man.
She feels strongly that, and they've had problems, but that going into the primary,
Right.
going into the following year, we're going to have issues.
And so, you know, I understand that we need to stay up with technology. My concern would be getting this equipment. How quick, I mean, saying that this all is approved, how quickly would they get this equipment? Could they do a test run, say, on the constitutional election in November, leading up to that? Because we want to get all the bugs out before the primaries. I will not support anything. I mean, as much as this is needed, I will say wait till 2019 if we can't get it way before the primaries in order to test all the bugs, get that all out of the way so we don't have problems come March of 2018, because that's a very important election. And if we can get it by this November or in place before then, so Kara's staff, they can get trained and then train everyone that's going to be actually being out there, all the election judges and all that. So that would just be my concern.
And the tent is, that's why Kara's came to judges, and probably, I think he's talked to some of you, but it was to do it now and have it so she can do exactly what you said, to do the constitutional election and get the bugs out of it. So when we go to the primary elections, they've already used it. They've had it. Now, the Hart machines, which you're looking at, the Hart says they can get them delivered to us, and the third thing we're looking at the court is wants to move forward with this thing here. We won't have COs sold quick enough to start that, but we're working with our bond attorney and would intend to look at bringing to the court, not tomorrow, Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, a reimbursement resolution, which basically says that gives us the capability of paying for those machines and then getting reimbursed from the COs. So the plan would be to move very quickly, get them in order and get them in place and have them for
the November election. And we've been assured if we move in this order, they've told us we can do that. So we'll see. And I agree with you. We need to have them here for that constitutional election.
And I'm assuming with better technology, we hopefully get faster, quicker results. There's less problems in just calculating and getting it set up and run down. Because I know, that's the one biggest problem that you hear a lot in the elections is, people are showing up to election sites and then the equipment's not working. And I get it. Some of it's just old technology-wise that it just can't get it done. But that would be my biggest concern, and I appreciate you all already thinking that far ahead and working it out. So if that's the case, I would definitely support that because we need it.
Judge Neal asked Steve and I to work with Karen looking at the new systems, and we've looked at more than one system, and the Hart system, which will replace what we have, is not markedly different than what we're doing now. The look and feel is pretty much the same. it'll be a little bit better. I was disappointed in the fact that the state legislature did not pass legislation that would give currently, and this is one of those crazy state rules, you can't have a system that creates a hard copy, basically receipt of what each voter does. And there are systems out there that do that, that we thought were better than the HART system that we're looking at, but we can't use them. And it's just,
So they didn't just certify, I mean, they were here, they do them in Tennessee, do them all over, but the state of Texas did not certify.
They use them all over the country, but the state of Texas, probably because somebody's getting their pocket lined, and I hate to say that, but, it just stinks to high heaven that these things are certified to use all over the country, and Texas won't allow them to be used, and they're better systems, and guess what? They were less expensive.
And I guess in working with this commissioner and Steve and Judge, I would hope that the local parties would have some ability to review this. I mean, I know initially you all need to screen this, but I mean, they're going to be the ones also working with the clerk's office and the primaries coming up, and so just if they can get a heads up and include it in what some of the possibilities are, what the technology looks like, if it's totally similar or very similar, because they're going to be the ones educating the public as well, as long as, in addition to the county. And so if that can be included, I would appreciate that.
Sure, that both of the parties have to give their blessings, I guess. Usually they both parties give their blessings
We fully
anyway.
plan to do that, John. We fully plan to
You
do
look at
that.
'em and-
Nobody's going to be kept in the dark.
And then the last item on here, as you know, everything we've had come in so far as cost on the 10 buildings we started with have come in at a higher estimate of what we put aside with the prior money. So we're recommending, it's not the money we need, but for this year, we're recommending an additional $1 million that we can at least add that to the money so we can do the buildings we're moving forward to get done. And, the Calderon building they're working on, they're close to getting started with the Hilltop, this courthouse. The architects are getting close to finalize that. So in the next year to 2 years, we're going to be going heavy on these buildings here. The outlying buildings that we had in that list are also getting close to that. So again, we pared this down to what we met with Noya Nosa, Strata Nosa, and we pared it down to what the max we can go to is still be able to fit it into our debt service fund and the overall proposal. So this certainly doesn't cover the needs of everything we need to do, as you know, and as far as a major capital increase, but at the same time, it's something that we believe is doable. Okay, moving forward to tab 8, as Judge says, these are Steve's magic sheets. Now trying to put this in perspective, I'll go through it. There's not a whole lot of numbers on here, but if you're starting at the very top with the estimated beginning balance at $18,543,149, that came off of Dale's estimated year-end fund balance for the current year, which he had on tab 2, page 3. So that's and by law the auditor is required to give the estimates for revenue and the actual estimates for the current year. And those are his numbers. The second line is the revenue estimate for the coming year, and this revenue estimate kept taxes. We starting with this program because we start working on it before we even know what we're going to get for tax revenue. So in the tax revenue included in here is exactly the same as we had in the current year. And so the starting baseline was $85,068,276. The transfers in is what we had for the same year last year. So the total revenues and transfers in, well, that's $86,334,049. Now, the new revenue which we anticipate, and if you go with the effective tax rate, the effective tax rate will yield $754,597. And so the combination of our beginning balance of 18 million, the revenue without taxes of 86 million, and then the 754,000 yields total resources available of 105,631,795. So that's what we have available to try to fit all this stuff in the box, assuming that you take the effective tax rate. The next, moving down then to proposed expenditures, the $85,427,007 is the original look that we took at tab 6, where I had estimated proposed budgets, and the transfers out of $8,642,539 came from that same tab 6, page 5. And that the total of both of those was $94,069,546. The next list of the changes we talked about that are already built into our needs, and as far as the requirements from the law enforcement, the continuous pay, retirement, and health fund. And so the number that we had on tab 7, page 1, that $1,785,460 is added in. And then the 18 items that we looked on page 2, tab 7, the $2,282,500. Those are summing up the total expenses. And so the total expenditures under this program would be $98,137,507. And if you take a look at that, with that scenario, we started with a fund balance of $18 million, and this is budgeted fund balance. Now, it's not necessarily actual estimated, but the budgeted fund balance, we would be at $7,500,000 roughly in a fund balance, budgeted fund balance for going forward. And I don't think, Judge, we've seen that in a long time.
Before Shamsi.
And then if we go to, let's see if I can find my other sheet here. Go to page 2. This is, on this page, I basically estimate, I take all the numbers that we talked about in the budget. At the top line for 2017-18, the top line which says budget, but all these numbers come from the previous sheet and so we had $18,543,149 as beginning balance. Revenues coming in, the transfers, and there's available resources, $105,631,795, again from the previous page. And you take the same thing for expenditures, and so the estimated budgeted fund balance of $7,494,289 is what we have there, which is basically a budgeted $11 million decrease in what our beginning balance and the ending balance would be. Now, projecting and estimating what our actuals will be for next year, we basically use our history. And historically, our revenues come in 101 percent of what we have budgeted, and so given that, we would gain $858,229 more than what we had budgeted. And again, we budget conservatively for revenues, and so we always have come in with more revenues than we budget, and same with expenditures. Budgeting conservatively there, we always spend less than what we have budgeted. So the big one here is for the budgeted expenditures. Dale showed you earlier what he had budgeted there, and that's a 94. If you estimate a 94% expenditure to budget, then there would be $5,351 that would not be spent, that we budgeted but did not spend. So that bottom line is going from there is under the ETR schedule, our estimated actual fund balance would be $13,704,216, and that is a $4.8 million increase from what we start in the year and what we estimate the ending balance to be. Down, and right below that is our target has always been, and we have a resolution, we have an agenda or the budget, but our target is to be have a fund balance that's 25% of revenues and transfers in. With a fund balance of $13,700,000, that we would be down to 15.7% of our target. Any questions on that?
So you're saying right now, our actual, instead of us being 25, we're at 15% on our actual?
The 15%, what that is, if you adopt the budget using the effective tax rate for the coming year, so you got $752,000 additional revenue, and you adopt the expenditures budget we looked at going through here, then at next year, in October 30th of 2018, we would end the year at that 15.7%.
If we held all the expenses in line.
Yes.
And we usually end up at 25 or 26 or 24?
No, we end up at 15.
No, usually before.
Oh, well, last year.
I think last year was 24.
Last year was 21.4.
21.
Before that was 26, 28, 29.
So I'm saying usually around the 24 now, which is a good deal.
This is the initial calculation of the effective tax rate, assuming the cost of government that we've outlined for both things we have to do and the other part that we need to do.
Stays the same. Don't change.
$10.4 million under.
Yeah, it would be spending from our fund balance is what would be spending that much money.
How does that affect our bond rate?
Well, we don't think it sits very well.
Yeah.
Go to the next one, please, if you will.
Okay, on page 3.
Let me ask one more question.
Yeah, sure, please. Yeah.
So at this point, Steve, if we're looking at 15.7, we're not saying we're not raising taxes at this point?
Under that scenario would be going with the effective tax rate, and the only new revenue you have new growth.
Okay.
Okay, on page 3, the only thing that's different on this page is I've put in here the current tax rate. So we're not going to change our tax rate, but we're increasing taxes.
Right.
If you stay with the current tax rate, then we would generate $2,673,873 in additional revenue. Everything else below that is the same. And under that scenario, we would end up with a fund balance of budgeted again, not estimated actual, but the budgeted fund balance would be 9,413,564. And then if you move forward into page 4,
Okay, hold on. What happened to the, okay, where you reading that one?
say again.
Where are you reading that? That one, you were just got through.
Okay, on page 3, the very bottom number,
Okay, page 3.
the budgeted balance for the end of 9/30/18 would be 9,713,000. You see that, Commissioner? Then on page 4, again, everything is the same as far as expenditures, with the budgeted fund balance of 9,413,564. The estimated actual year-end fund balance would be 15,642,684. That's still a $2.9 million decrease in your fund balance from the prior year. But it's we would end up at 17.6 of the target. So it makes about 2 percentage points difference in that target thing. This is moving in the other direction. But so, and I didn't do any other scenarios going above that.
So that's in that, we increasing the tax on that one?
You'll be increasing the tax, if the court just goes that, we're increasing the tax levy,
How much?
keeping the tax rate the same, but
Tax rate won't change.
tax rate will be the same as we have right now.
Tax rate will be the same, but then we're raising,
Well, it's the values, the effective tax rate, because our values increase, when you do the effective tax rate, it takes you back to the same levy as the previous year, plus new growth. So the effective tax rate number of 700,000, that was really due to the new growth. But keeping the current tax rate we have right now is like about 0.9% of 1 penny. So that difference, where the tax rate, keeping it will be higher than the effective tax rate.
and how much are we asking? We have to raise, how much do we have to raise?
It raises
So we're gonna raise.
additional money. It raises, if you go, we started out with the effective tax rate and be $750,000 in new money. With the current tax rate, it's 2.7, so roughly you're getting $1.7 million additional.
Okay, so my question again, is, at the current, we're raising the tax, say, almost a penny? Is what you're saying? I'm lost you there.
We're increasing above the effective tax rate, about a penny above the effective tax rate, but our tax rate today, the total would be the same tax rate we have today as what would be going forward next year. So the rate would be the same, but because of the valuations is different.
And because of truth in taxation, we would, if the court adopts the current tax rate, which is proposed here in this discussion, we pick up $2.7 million worth of revenue. We need a total of about $4 million worth of revenue, so we would still be drawing down our fund balance. But we will leave the proposed tax rate the same. Because of truth in taxation, we have to show an increase in revenue over the effective tax rate, which would only yield $700 and something thousand in new revenue if the court stayed at the effective tax rate. And as you can see, the effective tax rate of $700 and something thousand in additional revenue does not cover what we have to cover just for health insurance. So we have to look at a couple of things, and if I may, and I'm not trying to dominate this, but we spent a lot of time trying to get there so we could get here. There are no raises in here. There are no raises except for the cost of living increase for 140 employees. There's one new position for the DA, an adjustment in the county clerk, a very small adjustment there, and a small adjustment in Homer's department. Other than that, nothing else. All of the requests that were made for more people and more money and everything else under this proposal has been pared down about as lean as we think we can get. In the $2 million, 18 items, 4, 5, or 6 of those items were directed directly to reducing the jail population. Requests by the judges, by the DA, and everybody else. So the hope is that if we adopt this and we start to reduce the jail population, we'll see some things on the other end. In that proposed CO is the cloud, which we were told is very, very important. We need to remember that this is a one-time CO cost. In the future, that cloud cost has to be added to the general fund every year, whatever that happens to be. But I'm convinced, I think Mike's convinced, I'm certainly convinced about Lance, we've got to do this for security reasons and everything else. We can't not do it. The jail overtime for the first time is reflective of what has been paid year after year but not budgeted. And we sat down and scratched our heads for a long time and said, look, even if we leave 10, 15, 20 vacancies in the jail all the time, that still doesn't give us enough money to cover what his overtime is. Now, we've had a long discussion with the sheriff and his key people. He understands the closer to full employment he gets, the less overtime he should have, but he has to maintain that 1-to-48 ratio regardless. So, and then he has sick people and all the other stuff. So that's in there. And so even doing this, if you all were to agree with us that this is where we want to go, we are still hitting our fund balance by several millions of dollars. And folks, I'm telling you, that is not good public policy. And if we stay in line this year with the current tax rate, I can almost promise you that next year we're going to have to do something as a court to build our fund balance, because it is going to affect our bond rating, and it is going to affect our ability to deal with catastrophic events. And I hate this. I hate taking that fund balance down. I fought it for years, but it's a combination of several things. Increased costs in health care for the last 4 or 5 years has cost us millions of dollars. All right, and that came out fund balance. Number 2, when you use the effective tax rate, there's no float. You're just having enough money to operate that year on. And we've done that for 2 years, and that's good. That's good. But going forward, when our fund balance comes down like it is incumbent upon all of us to really take a hard look at this and say, wait a minute, we can't go back like we were 15 years ago. Remember when Judge Shamsi came in? He raised taxes, he cut 148 people out of the county and did a lot of stuff, and he paid a price for it. But it helped us turn the fund balance around. And we have been good managers and good stewards and good everything else. But there is a time when you just have to say, wait a minute, we are doing a super job this year for our employees on the health insurance. And that $900,000 that you and we're saying we need to pay is a benefit to all of our employees who are covered by this. And Brent said it best the other day, 2% increase for the employees is nothing in today's market. But that's in here. So, where we've gotten with all of us today for the last 4 hours or for 3.5 hours is tried to take this, as my friend Pusley says, I'm not feeding you through a fire hose today. We're really trying to take this very slowly so everybody understands there's nothing new in this budget. And we have cut this thing and sliced it and diced it and everything else, trying to stay within the current tax rate, which is, for the public, is good. For the truth in taxation, it's a pain. But for the public, it means their tax rate won't go up, but if their valuations went up, they're going to pay more money, and that's what that all does. We did not get a lot of new growth this year in Nueces County. And $600,000 or $700,000 in additional revenue from new growth is not very much. And we're beginning to see the effects of that. So all I'm asking you guys to do is please ask good questions. You have this morning. I appreciate that. Steve does. Teresa has worked herself to death. These two ladies and Dale have spent hours on this. We've had a dozen meetings whittling this thing down to where we can get there. Is this perfect? No. Is it the best we can do? I don't know. But I can tell you this, to change this very much is going to be very painful. Because if you want to move something, you got to take it from something, and then who pays for that? And so what we've tried to do with all of this is say, if we're going to be just as lean as we can be, there are some things we feel like we have to do. But that's what this is. And I want to thank these guys. They have really worked hard on this to get us here.
You've done a good job, very good job.
I'm through making speeches, but this has been a great morning. We've taken really good time, and everybody's asked good questions, and there's a lot to decipher in here. And I can tell you right now, there are unhappy people in this courthouse after hearing this, and I understand that.
Let me ask another question. They might make people unhappy too.
That's where we are.
But we have to ask these questions too.
Yeah.
To find out what, Judge, the last 2 years, I think we reduced the tax, but a penny or a penny and a half. Last year was almost a penny and a half. So we've gone down for the last 2 years or 3 years. So if we say raise a penny tax, where would that get us? I mean, would that put us somewhere where we need to be? Or?
Well, it would give us $2 million, or a little over $2 million more, Joe, but I can tell you right now, and we had this discussion, I would not vote for any more tax increase unless we pledged as a court that we didn't spend that money. It all went to the fund balance. And I'm afraid that if we have a little more money, the temptation is going to be for all these people out there to come back and say, well, you got $2 million more, and all I wanted was $100,000 or $200,000.
So you're saying to go to rebuild the reserve again?
Yeah.
You go back up to build the reserve?
But that would take a lot of discipline by this court to do that. I'm not saying we couldn't,
sure.
but it would take a lot of discipline. And this year, if we're all close to agreement that we can do this, I can tell you that Attila the Hun is going to be managing this budget next year, because we have to build the fund balance through expense reduction. That's all there is to it. We have to build the fund balance through expense reduction. So we'd be watching with our auditing department everything. That's all.
One last question.
Yeah.
On the COs, we don't have any more COs coming to us like we did the last, any CO funding that we had the last 2 years? One was $1 million, $3 million, $1 million.
We had $10 million.
Nothing's coming this coming year, right?
The coming year, we're suggesting only $1 billion.
So why can't we use those million to put it, why can't we use that million that we got coming
Well,
to put it back into the,
You can't do that.
can't do that?
No,
well,
can't use it for operations.
We committed to the DOJ that we had 10 buildings that we were going to work on first. And thank you. And we already know that they're all coming in over. So what we had estimated those first 10 buildings to be is is short. I don't think $1 million is going to cover it when you talk about the
We're not
courthouse.
talking about the $1 million that we all get each.
Oh, we're not getting that this year.
Not getting any,
Zero.
Okay, well, that was my deal.
No. The only money, Joe, for any of us in this proposed budget is $120,000 each.
Okay.
70 and 50. We didn't change that. So whatever monies, balances are in those funds that were left, that's it. There'll be no more.
Okay, well, I was just, that was my concern. If we got it coming,
No.
why don't we give it back?
No, nothing.
What's the I know the 50, what's the 70
well, there's 50,
in the general, it comes in every year?
and then the 70 is a special revenue, 50 of it's special revenue, and 20 is outside agencies. So there's each commissioner gets 70,000 in special revenue funds. 20 of that is for outside agencies.
Well, the 50 is for we get additional money for we have a CO money that you get every year. It's not really CO money, it's capital project money. It goes to Fund 19.
Right, we get the 50, then the 20, and that's it this year,
That's
right?
it.
Okay.
Whatever was there.
No,
You get 70 for
50
your
plus 70.
13.
50 general for capital, and another 70 for special revenue.
Yes,
So you get a total of 120,
120.
120.
Yes.
Yes, you do. Yeah. You're giving it all to them out there.
But 20 of that is outside agency.
Yeah, outside agencies.
So 50, 50, and then 20 for the outside.
That's correct.
That's the 10K.
So,
Don't worry.
please, think about this. Yeah, please.
Could we go back and look at the transfer out section again real quickly?
Yes, sir. We'll go to tab 6, tab 6, page 5.
5, isn't it? Yeah.
In here,
I don't have.
the top items are transfers to Public Works, and that 500, I talked already about the tax revenue.
Where are you?
Tab 6, page
Tab
5.
6, page 5, which has the transfers.
Yeah, I'm sort of like puzzling now. I don't think I have it. Here it is. I got it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So what we're transferring out, proposing to transfer out is the money that goes to Public Works, and again, the engineers, by law, the Public Road Fund cannot pay for that. And so we transfer money every year from the general fund to pay for the engineering department, which is $545,000. Our records imaging, we're transferring $301,000 in there, and again, the revenues we don't get in the revenues in that special revenue enough to cover the whole works. Records management, we're transferring $68,000. Courthouse security, $125,000. Now, we're transferring these all to special revenue accounts, and we transfer only what's needed to make it through the year. The courthouse security, we have a fee, but the fee doesn't cover the whole requirement for our contract, so we end up have to spend more money over there. The big one, that $1.1 million, that's part of our energy savings through Johnson Controls. So this is money that Dale puts in there every year that goes to paying for the debt on that, and that we were able to reduce our utility bills by this $1.1 million, and it's kept pretty constant there. So that's been that reduction. Then the next five is the $70,000, Commissioner. If you look in there, that goes to each commissioner. We're transferring $150,000 to the stadium.
Is that, Is it that 150,000 to the stadium, is that what we've been doing every year?
Yes, yes.
That's just basically to fund the overhead of the stadium, or is that's not the debt service?
No, that is just the stadium operating costs out there.
Okay.
Now, we do,
So if we,
You know, if you take a look at-
close the stadium, period, and just paid the debt service, that 150,000 would go away.
say that again? Oh.
If we just shut the stadium down, because now we're leasing it out to different groups, so it's costing us 150,000 a year to lease it out to these different groups.
Well, yes, it is, but we still, depends why we want to shut it down and not do any maintenance on the thing, you know. I mean, it's, the bulk of this is, you know, year-to-year upkeep on the thing, and we do pay for, like, I think the pond out there, the utilities on the pond and pump, et cetera. There's, and also the marquee is paid out of that fund also.
Okay. All right.
Now, the million that goes to the fairgrounds, part of that is about 850,000, that goes to to our contract with Global. Then we have insurance costs, 850,000 is that's contract Global. 100,000 is for insurance and all the properties out there. 35,000 is for maintenance and repair, and under this commissioners, you know, we do all the ground maintenance around there, so some of these costs are for grounds maintenance, et cetera. And then a very small amount, you know, for what the size of that facility is, but we have $100,000, 65 for major capital and 35 for M&R, but you think about it, I mean, these air conditioners are getting old, the maintenance on those type of things, it's a reality that, you know, we have to pay for those things. So makes up the budget transfer to the fairgrounds and stadium. And then the airport, that 63.8 is what we've been doing for many years. And hopefully as we move along, we'll be able to move that down some. Coastal parks, this is, no, first of all, inland parks. And that number is the same as, the only change from last year is the 51,980 that we've taken out of the community services and send it over to the park to pay for that salary. Coastal parks, this is the same as what he had last year, and from the other pay tab 7, we'll be adding another 300,000, so that the coastal parks will be at 1.2 million. Then the last items there is the $50,000 for capital for each commissioner.
Okay.
I had some questions, Judge, since this is my first time with the group. I recognize what you're saying, and I appreciate your hard work, and if we could record just what you said and play that over, I think that would help ease some concern from the department heads and other elected officials here in the county, and also the taxpayers, knowing all the time and effort that has been put into this, that it's not an easy process, that we recognize we can't just say we have a blank check. That mentality has, I think, gone away for the most part in government. But we do recognize when we do need to make a difference and increase the revenue, that we have to do that as well. But I understand what you were saying as far as this year's budget and what we have to do in order to meet our needs, because it's just not going to be enough with what we're collecting, and we have to make some savings. But looking into next year, my concern is how much do you anticipate, Steve, Dale, how much do we anticipate in really guarding closely over the expenses? I mean, that monthly expense report, I'm anticipating we're going to be putting a lot more time and effort into that. But do we have a number in mind that will help replenish some of those reserves that we are going to be taking out or propose to take out for this year and that we have in the past? Is it $1 million, $2 million? Is it a few $100,000? Do we, where? Because when referenced, when asked, I mean, I want to be able to share that as well with those, with
Well, we
constituents.
got to
those in the
hope our
community.
health care insurance rates don't go up another $2 million.
Well,
John, the number is $5+ million. And it's on page 4 under tab 8 behind the estimate using the current tax rate. And it's the delta between the budgeted number and the expense control number, if that helps answer your question. And every dollar that we and all of those folks that are watching, and they've really done a good job, every dollar they don't have to spend for the next 12 months starting October the 1st goes to that number. Now, at the end of that year, are we still going to need to look at a fund balance change? Yes. I can tell you that right now, yes. And if you remember, going forward, if our values stay, net values stay around around 28 billion, then a penny is about $2.8 million. So if you, and if the legislature reduces the 8% to 6 or 4%, that narrows what we even think we can do to raise taxes if we want to raise taxes. Because 2 cents on this year was about $5.6 million. And 2 cents would have thrown us past the rollback rate. So it gets, the legislature is not helping us by narrowing that number. And then it's just, how do you manage, And thank God we've got some people who help us. They really do help us. But everybody watching this today is going to tell us they need more people, more this, more that to do their job, and I respect that. But that's where we are.
And my concern too is it's the big picture, and it's one collective amount of money. I think some managers, some office holders have or will be more efficient, more guarded in the money. I hope that some will not. But looking at these numbers, we see some big dramatic differences, and that's my concern too. Is that, I know we control the purse strings, but in the end, if it's a department head, it falls under us, so we have better control. But if it's an office holder, we don't have necessarily that much oversight until kind of towards the end, after it's maybe already spent or what have you. But my concern would be just that, and I know that you've sent that message out, and I appreciate everyone working on this. But I think that my concern will be, yes, everyone will be efficient, but if not, we need to know, immediately we need to bring it up, like when Dale was able to catch that difference of that gas rate change or whatever it is that we're paying, that we are constantly monitoring that so that we can get to a better point, knowing that it's only half the solution. But
Yeah, we get so much better information now than we did 2 years ago because of the auditing department, and it gets better every time he looks at it. Does this make it possible for us to say you can't spend any more money? No, because the district clerk and the county clerk and the DA, they have a job to do, a constitutional job they have to do. And they are, for the most part, very good managers. They really are. All of them are very good managers. But you get a state jail inspection, or you get somebody pulls $400,000 worth of revenue or $500,000 worth of revenue out of your budget because of whatever, we don't control that.
The thing that,
And we
this
try
budget, yeah,
it, but we don't.
our budget is 76% of our budget is personnel-related costs, or operating costs. And in prior years, we could shave some of that off with some freezes, but that just doesn't work anymore.
Well, fellas, ladies, we've tried not to do my puzzly act of getting it to you through a fire hose, but look at this. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Mike, we understand you've got a problem and may not be able to do that. Do we need to have that meeting?
Well, my question is more along the answer for me is no, because I'm going to need more time than tomorrow.
Yeah.
But my question is, we have a couple scheduled next week. Are those still on?
We're going to have to, we have to, as I said at the outset, we have to make a decision of what you're going to do with taxes before our meeting of the 16th.
Okay.
So we're scheduled, right now the schedule has a 14th and 15th workshop, but we need to narrow that down, because if we don't make a decision on taxes, then this whole schedule trying to get this budget out is going to be changed.
Well, I guess, and that's just my question. I am fine with. I'm glad we ran through this today. I certainly don't want to ever have a meeting when someone of the court can't be here, and I certainly respect and understand why Commissioner Pusley can't. So I'm good for not having one tomorrow, and I don't know that we need to have two next week. That was just all I was asking. If not,
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't all of us take another hard look at this? Dale is available. Steve is available. I'm available. Please, if you got a question, let's ask the question. Think about it. We won't meet tomorrow, if that's okay. And then, do you have a problem with the 14th or whatever it is?
I might not. So if we don't need to, and we could just do the one on Tuesday the 15th, that would be the safest. If we need to, I don't know for sure on that 14th. I thought I did today, but then I've got something I might
don't need another
not.
meeting, but you all may.
We have to have one, I think.
No, I'm just talking about to hash the stuff.
Yeah, I would suggest we have it on the 15th and plan for the morning of the 15th, unless someone in here believes they need to go too. But that's just my suggestion, and I'm totally fine with not meeting tomorrow.
Your Honor, could I ask
Please.
before we fold our tent here?
Yep.
A
Please.
hypothetical question, and I want to go back to page 4 on tab 8.
Which one?
Be page 4 on tab 8. And this scenario is, we're looking at a 1 penny increase over the effective tax rate. Is that correct? Or no, it'd be 1 penny above our current tax rate.
No, it's about 900 basis points.
No.
That's current rate. Oh, current, I'm sorry, yes.
This is current rate? Okay, so this doesn't give us so if we went a penny above, that's another is that another 2.6 million onto the fund balance?
Yes.
So that would bring us to about 17 million and some change. Okay. If we, and this is my hypothetical question, if we were to go back through the current budget numbers that we looked at right now, or just looked at this morning, and we said, okay, we're going to go back through that, and we're going to cut $2.5 million of spending out of that budget. Is there?
Has to be positions. I mean, seriously, with this budget as lean as it is, 76% of it is personnel costs, and as the judge mentioned before, I was part of that cut the last time, and I think we cut more than the extra fluff in there, and it's be harder to do at this point in time, but if we don't cut positions or freeze positions, I don't think there's a way to make up $2 million, because it's just materials and, I mean, you look at it, utilities we got to pay for, there's so many of this stuff.
I realize that, but if we went back and I'm just throwing this out as hypothetical in case we get asked these questions. If we said, okay, we're not going to do the cloud, we're not going to do the DA's added position, we're not going to do the district court's request to hire 2 more probate people, we're going to go back through and all of those things that we're adding to the budget, we just say, we can't do them this year. What does that add up to?
Well, if you look at
100,000.
the cloud we put into CO, so that won't help our general
Okay, well,
fund.
we'll take that aside for a second.
1,785,000.
When I look at, if you go back and if you want to relook at tab 7, page 2, most of these big ticket items is the elections, we're going to have to pay the elections, and so we can't really take the 300,000 out there. We could take the 140 from IT and the auditor, the gas usage thing, I look at that as bad as it was our budget balance. By the time we ferret that out and finally get to final resolutions, if we don't spend it for the additional gas, it certainly go a long way in helping your fund balance. So. Yeah. But to go respend that money someplace else, I don't think would be good. Mayor, I don't think, we're struggling along with what we have there. I wouldn't recommend that.
But the answer to his question is, I know you don't recommend any of them, but the answer to his question is, if you took all of these things out, if you did it.
If you took everything, it's $2.2 million.
That's what it would equal to, Mike, is what I think you're asking.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can do that.
Well, I get it, but he's just asking the hypothetical.
Yeah, if you did, and we left the effective tax rate going forward, we would still be $1 million short of meeting what we have to do in those 4 items.
$1 million short where now?
On page 1, under tab 7.
Yeah, but I think he's asking it under the scenario which you presented the budget, right?
Yeah, I know.
I think.
But of those 4 items there, we really can't not do those 4.
Okay, the 1.7, I understand you can't.
Okay.
You can't not do those.
That's right.
That's right. But the items on page 2, those are the ones that are.
We could probably cut $1 million out of that, maybe.
Yeah, because there's some of those items there, if we don't fund the election, we're going to pay for it anyway.
That's right.
And the same with the overtime for
the sheriff's
department, we're going to fund it anyway. And coastal parks, they can't operate without
When you
additional
take
money.
those 2 numbers out, the rest of it's chump change.
You got the big ones, yeah.
I mean,
we looked at,
the overtime is 352,000, the elections is 300,000.
And
that's $650,000 right there.
And coastal parks is 300, so that's $1 million. Those 3 items are $1 million.
And the coastal parks at 300,000, I'm sorry, I didn't get that when you first presented it. That's insufficient fund in general, so just the daily operations of the park, they're coming up short?
yes, sir, and basically their budget-wise, they asked for a lot more, but their budget proposed budget going forward for next year is
Do we have that somewhere, Steve? Look up.
yeah, if you go to tab 21, page 3. Their budget is essentially the same as they had last year, is what we have here. There's a $145,000 increase you see there, but that's all, that has to do with, it's a different situation over there with payment of water and utilities. Dale, can you explain that?
They had a reading from the city, and we talked to the Parks Department, and when they were doing some maintenance work out there, or addition to the Pottery Barley Department, they found that the contractor was using water on the county's meter, and we were being charged for it. I think we're working on trying to get that recovered, and I think some other items that was being done there we're working with the coastal parks to make sure that's been amended or fixed or sent out to them. But that was the main charge for them was the water charge.
You see here, again, they'd end up $249,000 in the hole. So, again, I think that trying to operate that and keep those assets moving forward, and as you all know, we keep them.
Well, I guess I just.
Assets.
I was totally surprised by that because that's the coastal parks is one area I've always considered to be really cash flush. So I was just surprised that their operating expenditure is going to come up short. That one really caught me off guard.
And it's a combination of, over the years, we've kept the amount transferred there into the inland parks pretty much constant. We would increase it only by any salary increases. And Coastal Park is, to keep moving, they've had to operate off their fund balances to some extent, so the fund balance isn't there to carry it forward for another year.
Well, also, Steve, with the additional construction of the Pottery Barley, there's now a few more utility meters out there that they now have to cover, which wants to start leasing the RV parks, that'll be covered, but we have to pay for that now. And we found at one point in time there was a facility out of IB McGee that was being expensed to the inland parks, so we're now charging the island parks, so there's a little bit of extra cost that's now being referred to them.
Well, and they've gotten some big water bills. I don't know if those have been rectified. We've lost
We've been working
revenue
with Scott
based on
that and haven't heard back from them.
We've lost a significant amount of revenue that we anticipated this year based on our continuing problems out there that.
Yeah, we don't want to get into.
Why are you trying to expand?
So the revenue generated from our Bob Hall Pier activities, Michael Mays, and we get a percentage of that revenue, right? The county does. It comes back to us and goes into Precinct 4 operations as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, not Precinct 4, Coastal Parks. Yeah.
Okay, Coastal Park.
If you would, Commissioner, go to page 2, back up one page, and that has the revenue. So they've,
Page 2, which tab?
21.
21 still?
Yeah.
21, page 2.
Sure, it's in there. I just hadn't had a chance to look at it.
And we're budgeting $1.1 million of revenue that they're taking in, and you can see the different categories, for beach stickers, for pier fees, and all that stuff. But
Right.
What page you on?
Page 2, 21.
page tab 21, page 2.
And the 4315 is, the 4317 pier fee and commission, that's the commission you're talking about, Commissioner. So the commission we get from the
Pier fees and commissions?
that's coming straight from the revenue that's generated.
Yeah, all that money, except the $917,000 in the transfers, is coming from Island Parks itself, so their total, out of the $2.4 million, there's $900,000 that is coming from general fund now.
Okay.
Out of 2.4, so they're generating 1.5 million of the, right, okay.
Anything else? Anybody?
Judge,
Yeah, please.
I recognize the need, maybe, obviously not to meet tomorrow, let us digest this. And looking at next week, I know Commissioner Chesney may have a conflict, but
It may not.
the sooner, the better that we can come back and meet on this, because we may chew on this over the next few days and get with you and
Oh, yeah.
even everyone. and then-
We are still scheduled for Monday and Tuesday of next week. If it doesn't work out, we'll have to adjust, but right now, we're scheduled for Monday.
So, say we don't do Monday, but we do Tuesday, is
Right.
that still enough time for us to digest this, work through this, and then we have to vote on Tuesday before?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
We're going to vote on Wednesday,
Wednesday.
next Wednesday?
Right.
Okay, so all the discussion can still be worked out
Yes.
Tuesday?
In the workshop.
Okay.
And,
And then into
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
and,
Okay.
and the only thing you have to have voted is what you're gonna do with taxes.
Tax rate.
Now, what you're gonna do with
Okay.
the rest of the budget, you can move things around.
Right.
It's just the revenue that, we have to make, so you have to make a decision what you're gonna wanna do with tax.
So is the proposal, Your Honor?
Yeah.
From you and
Yep.
staff, that we
You-
keep our
Current tax rate.
Current tax rate, the 2.6 million additional.
That's right. And no raises except for the step increases, and no new positions except for that one or two that I said, and no reclassifications except for one reclassification.
last year to all our employees, we gave 3%.
Two.
2.5.
Two.
What does it cost for a 2% pay increase?
Over $1 million.
If our total salaries was around 44 million, so 2%, about $1 million.
$1,000,000.
Okay.
All right.
Mike, our thoughts are with your family tomorrow. We're sorry that this has to happen like this. Please tell Norma we're thinking about her.
Yeah, a number of you have expressed your condolences, and I sincerely appreciate that. It's been
Tough
a very
time.
difficult time.
To all of you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a good morning. Thanks for everybody.
I enjoyed it.